owner of the US Mega Farmest video is Puremont para Intratnamiento Wino infringed Direcos de Autorenales. Los Direcos de la Novela y la Imagen son del autor original, no reclama más propiedad. No te gusta esperar y quieres escuchar este fanfic completo ahora? Suscríbete a nuestro Patreon, donde encontrarás los mejores fanfics. Chapter 126. What? The person ran away. Although David looked confident, Kinzu still felt that something was wrong and felt uneasy. Seeing that Kinzu was still a little worried, David patted him on the shoulder and said mysteriously, "Clean, don't worry, those guys can't get away. Because this time they directly mobilized the FBI." Kinzu was stunned. FBI? Yes, David nodded affirmatively. That's good. Hearing this, Kinzu was relieved. He smiled bitterly helplessly. It seemed that he was a little nervous because of recent events. In the evening, Eva cooked as usual. Anyway, Kinzu felt that Eva's dishes were good, so he didn't feel like working in the kitchen anymore. Because David was here today, Eva specially made a few more side dishes: baked snails, fried clams, fried veal steaks, and fried herrings. There was also the indispensable cheddar soup, plus a few servings of pasta. Looking at the side dishes in front of him that exuded an alluring aroma, David gave Eva a thumbs up. Come on, everyone come over for dinner. Inviting several people to the restaurant for dinner, Kinzu took out a bottle of red wine from the wine cabinet. Although it was just an ordinary lift, it was quite expensive. Just as Kinzu and his friends were enjoying their dinner, the crazy night located in the West End of Boston, which had been in business for decades, also washed in the last battle of his life. Boss, there are so many police outside. What should we do? A younger brother stumbled into Dupont's office, looked at Kevin Dupont who was talking on the phone, took a few deep breaths, and then spoke a little stammeringly. Waste, why are you panicking? Have you forgotten what my uncle does? Dupont scolded the somewhat panicked younger brother in front of him a few times, and then changed his tone and said, "Okay, don't panic, go gather everyone, we're ready to move." When the younger brother agreed and ran out in a hurry, Dupont sighed deeply. He didn't expect things to get to this point. The person on the phone just now was his father's comrade-in-arms, a man he wanted to call uncle. He scolded him on the phone, but in the end he still arranged a way out for him. Thinking of this, Dupont felt grateful. He knew how much risk his uncle took to leave him a way out. After packing up the things he had prepared long ago, Dupont walked out of the office with a password box. He gave a look to the two confidants at the door, and the two immediately followed him. When dozens of FBI members with live ammunition and hundreds of special police rushed in, it meant that the gang that had dominated the West District for more than a decade was completely destroyed. ZZZ. Boss, the first floor has been controlled, and the target person has not been found. The second floor has been controlled, and the target person has not been found. The target person has not been found on the third floor. Bang. After punching the car next to him, March roared in anger. Fuck, damn it, who leaked the news, who is it? No wonder March was so angry. This time, it was his immediate boss who personally ordered him to do it, especially the Dupont. He wanted to see the person alive or dead. But now, let alone the person, he didn't even see the shadow of the person. How can he explain this when he goes back? Picking up his pistol, March strode inside. Dinglingling David, who was chewing a piece of steak, put down his knife and fork, and didn't forget to praise Eva's cooking skills before answering the phone. What did you say? The person ran away. Fuck, how could this happen? David, who was originally smiling and waiting to hear good news, was directly beaten into the 18th level of hell by the voice of his friend on the other end of the phone. After a few more words, David hung up the phone with an embarrassed look. Looking at Kinzu, who was calm on the other side, he smiled bitterly and said, "Clean, something really happened." Kevin Dupont received the news in advance and escaped through the secret passage just before the police surrounded him. Kinzu nodded calmly, and he didn't know what to say. I should have thought of it a long time ago. With such a high reward task, how could the system let you complete it so easily? Kinzu laughed at himself. It was ridiculous that he thought the system was merciful and started to give away points. Are you stupid now? It's okay. He can't make any waves alone. Seeing David's somewhat ashamed look, Kinzu had to force a smile and comforted him instead. The dining table fell into silence for a while. The two sisters looked at each other and felt a fire burning in their hearts. Kinzu looked at the table full of delicious food and suddenly felt a little bit unable to swallow. He saw that everyone had almost finished eating, so he stood up and said, David, you can sleep in the guest room tonight. I'm going to go back and rest first. Back upstairs, Kinzu didn't take a shower and just lay straight on the bed. He now felt that he had encountered a big problem. Opening the task panel, there was indeed no movement on it. It was still the question mark, still the unfinished, and still no response. How should I find him now? I don't know where he has gone. Where can I find him? Thinking of the generous reward, Kinzu rubbed his hair in annoyance. Hello, Erica, it's me, Dale. In another room, Dale was holding a mobile phone and talking about something. Oh my god, Dale, is it really you? How did you suddenly retire? Erica George sat up from the bed. She was on a mission outside of the time. When she came back, she heard that Dale had retired. Well, something happened at home and I need your help. By the way, are you available to talk now? Dale asked cautiously at this time. Well, I'm in the dormitory. It's safe here. Just tell me what you want to say. Erica stood up and walked to the door to listen carefully, then said to Dale on the other end of the phone. Can you help me check the whereabouts of a person named Kevin Dupont, who is from Boston? You should have heard of him. Well, I have heard of him. But why are you checking him? Isn't he going to be unlucky today? Erica asked with some confusion. After that, he turned on the computer and started to work quickly. No, this guy got the news in advance and ran away. I hope you can help me find him. Dale said, her tone became serious and heavy, as if this matter had a lot to do with her. What? Who is so bold as to tip off about this matter? Erica was very surprised. Isn't this person afraid? How dare he intervene in such a high-profile case? Thanks to Fengxi for the reward and support. Chapter 127 Cannon. After hanging up the phone, Dale returned to the bedside and opened his gun cabinet. He took out a very rough-looking gun from it, and couldn't let it go. He held it in his hand and slowly wiped it. If there was a Crossfire fan here at this time, he would definitely exclaim cannon. That's right, the gun that Dale held in his hand and wiped carefully was the legendary heavy anti-material sniper rifle, Barrett A107. It is also a gun called cannon by CF fans. In September 2003, the American Barrett Light Arms Manufacturing Company won the production contract of the M107 project. It was produced by the Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey and debuted in the U.S. Army's Desert Storm operation. The M107 has passed rigorous testing and evaluation and has the advantages of high reliability and suitability for operation. This heavy anti-material sniper rifle is equipped with a 15x optical sight, which can accurately strike living forces within a range of 2,000 to 6,813 meters, and can fire a variety of 12.7mm ammunition. This heavy anti-material sniper rifle was once rated as one of the top 10 greatest technological inventions of the U.S. Army in 2004 by the U.S. Army Materiel Command. While Dale was wiping the beloved gun that had been with her for several years and retired with her, the phone next to her rang suddenly, which seemed a little urgent in the quiet night. Dale, I have found out for you that Dupont was arranged by Stanley Benson to take a smuggling boat, which will depart from Boston to Africa at 12 o'clock at night. After a pause, Erica said with some concern, Dale, there are still many little brothers around him. Do you want me to send someone to help you? Ha, Erica, do you think I can't deal with a few gangsters? What's more, my baby is still with me. Dale stroked the cold gun in her arms and asked with a smile. Okay, I knew it would be like this, but you'd better be careful. I'll come to see you when I'm on vacation. Erica shrugged helplessly. She knew this would be the result. This girl is so proud. Well, okay, I know. I'll be careful. After saying that, Dale hung up the phone decisively. She was afraid that she would not be able to hold back if she continued. Countless nights, she would dream of her group of sisters and comrades, and the training base where she had been for many years. After calming down, Dale carefully put the Barrett into the long backpack. Pull up the backpack and go directly to the bathroom. Not long after, the sound of water in the bathroom stopped, and Dale walked out naked. The hot body was revealed, with plump breasts, perky buttocks, and a small waist that could be held in one hand. It's a pity that no one can appreciate this moment of spring light. She changed into a tight black leather jacket and high-top riding boots. Dale tidied up her wet hair, then walked out the door carrying the backpack containing the Barrett. Eva, why aren't you asleep yet? As soon as she walked out of the bedroom, Dale saw Eva leaning against the stairs and asked in surprise. Sister, where are you going? Eva looked at her sister in black with a complicated expression and asked in a panicked tone. Dale's face froze and she didn't say anything. She took light steps and came closer. She raised her hand and gently stroked Eva's pretty face, and said softly, "This trouble was caused by us. Keen should not worry about it anymore. Don't worry, I will be back soon. You go back to sleep first." Feeling the temperature of her face, Eva was a little lost. It had been a long time since her sister was so close to her. She raised her head and muttered with moist eyes, But I'm so afraid that you were in danger. Do you know how worried I was about you during the years you were out there?" Her body shook slightly, and Dale felt as if a thunderbolt flashed through her heart at this moment. Yes, she was very happy in the military camp in the past few years, but what about her family? Why did her father have a gambling addiction? Because of her father's gambling addiction, how much pressure did her sister have to bear in the past few years? The more she thought about it, the more guilty she felt. However, looking at her sister's tearful eyes, Dale whispered, "Eva, don't worry. After I solve this trouble, there will be no more danger. We can't track down the boss." She nodded helplessly. Eva also understood this truth and could only nod with tears in her eyes. "Sister, you have to be careful. If it doesn't work, we will sell the ranch at home and hire someone else." "Silly child, don't worry. It's just a small matter for me. Go back to bed first and rest early. Good night." After saying that, Dale gently kissed Eva's smooth forehead and went downstairs without looking back. What no one noticed was that at the moment of turning around, the tears that had been accumulated for a long time finally overflowed from the slightly red eyes. Watching her sister's slender back disappear at the stairs, Eva collapsed on the floor weakly and sobbed softly. This was different from being invaded by someone in the manor. Thinking that her sister would take the initiative to end a person's life, Eva couldn't help trembling. After going downstairs, Dale stood quietly in the night for a long time, until she calmed down her inner fluctuations, and then she opened the garage door. She gently placed the Barrett on the back seat of the old Ford 150, and drove directly out of the ranch. Keen's who was sleeping in the bedroom, seemed to hear the sound of the car engine, but he didn't care about it in a daze. He turned over and fell asleep again. At this time, on the Boston seashore, on a bustling pier, Pond was waiting quietly in the corner with a few confidants. His uncle arranged a ship for him at 12 o'clock to go to the African continent, which was a deserted but war-torn continent. Thinking of this, Pond looked in the direction of Keen's ranch with hatred. "Yellow monkey, you wait for me, I will come back after the storm is over." He raised his hand to check the time. Well, it was already 11:50. Seeing that the ship with the sign had already docked, Pond spat fiercely on the ground. He looked back reluctantly at the bustling metropolis, the place where he had fought all his life. He couldn't help but feel sad when he thought that he would not be able to come back for a long time. "Let's go, the ship has arrived, let's go." Pond gave an order to the several men behind him who were obviously reluctant, and then he led the way to the dock. He knew that his confidants were very reluctant to follow him, but what could he do, because their handles were in the hands of his uncle. But what he didn't realize was that the moment he turned around, a broken pickup truck that had been parked at the dock for a long time, as if it was someone's family unloading goods, appeared in it. A shiny black gun barrel slowly poked out of the window with a crack. "Thanks to Fengxia AIDADA, the other party is inputting the reward support, and thank you for the bottle of Red Bull that for you redeemed. Well, it tastes good." Chapter 128 Pond's death. As he got closer and closer to an old cargo ship parked at the dock, Pond suddenly felt uneasy and stopped walking slowly. This feeling of uneasiness made him feel a little palpitating. Seeing Pond dared to stop and look around in the distance, Dale showed a bloodthirsty smile at the corner of his mouth. While Pond turned his head to look around, he decisively pulled the trigger. Bang! With a dull gunshot, the large caliber muzzle of the Barrett spurted out a tongue of angry fire. A dazzling tongue of fire accompanied by the whistling bullet was infinitely magnified in Pond's size in this dark night. Looking at the scene in the distance that looked like a bursting watermelon, Dale stretched out his tongue and licked his sexy lips. He put the Barrett back in the back seat, ignored the messy dog, and drove away. Ding-ling-ling-ling-ling. A harsh cell phone ringtone rang in the smoky conference room. At this time, Nelson gathered all the senior officers at the police station in the conference room to discuss the disappearance of Pond. For this matter, he had been scolded by Governor Theodore. But he had clearly called Stanley Benson to the conference room for a meeting before the action, and the meeting has not been adjourned until now. How did he tip off? Yes, Nelson was very sure that it was definitely Stanley Benson who tipped off. Usually, he always protected Kevin Dupont, and their relationship was known to the entire Boston Police Department. Hearing the ringing of the cell phone, Nelson, who was a little tired because of the continuous meeting for a day, was suddenly shocked. Wasn't it this call that he had been waiting for? He believed that if Stanley tipped off, Dupont would definitely call back to report that he was safe. "Captain Stanley, why don't you answer the phone?" Nelson stared at Stanley tightly and said in a stern tone. Stanley's forehead was sweating when he saw the incoming call number, but he had to answer the call under the stares of so many superiors in the conference room. "Superintendent Stanley, Boss Dupont was shot dead at the dock." As soon as the call was connected, a somewhat terrified voice came from the other end. "What?" Stanley stood up with a bang, and regardless of the strange looks from his colleagues and superiors in the room, he exclaimed in disbelief. "Just now, when we were about to board the ship, Boss Dupont was shot by a sniper, and we didn't even see the murderer." After hanging up the phone with a snap, Stanley stared at Nelson in front of him with angry eyes, and shouted hysterically, "You arranged it. It must be you who arranged it, right?" No, Chief Stanley, this was not arranged by me. I'm still not sure of Dupont's exact location." Nelson sat down in his seat with ease. No matter whether Dupont was dead or alive, as long as Dupont did not run away from the United States, he could give an explanation to Governor Theodore. "But, Chief Stanley, shouldn't you explain why you were in contact with the suspect? He disappeared early. Did you tip him off?" Hearing Nelson's question, Stanley, who was in anger, froze and stammered, "He is the descendant of my comrade-in-arms. Isn't it normal for us to be in contact?" No, you can explain these things to the people in the investigation bureau. Okay, let's go to the scene together." After saying that, Nelson stood up. No longer looking at Stanley, who was in a frozen state, he took the lead and walked out of the meeting room. He collapsed on the seat with weakness all over his body. Stanley couldn't figure out why the news was leaked, but now everything was meaningless. Dupont was dead, and his last hope was gone. Creaky. The door of the meeting room was gently pushed open, and several fully armed special police walked in. Without saying anything, he directly carried Stanley, who was slumped in the seat, and walked out. Driving a pickup truck to the ranch, Dale looked at the police who suddenly appeared on the road and curled her lips in disdain. This speed is really fast. It was not yet 2 o'clock when she returned to the ranch. After parking the car, Dale returned to the villa quietly. At this time, the light in Eva's room was still on. When she heard the noise, she pushed the door and walked out. Seeing that her sister was intact, she breathed a sigh of relief. "Good night, dear." After pushing open the bedroom door and saying good night to Eva next door, Dale went directly into the bathroom to wash up again. Although she didn't have any bloody smell on her body at this time, she was still afraid of scaring her sister. "Well, sister, good night." Looking at Dale's back, Eva smiled slightly. In the early morning, Kinsey slowly woke up from his sleep, rubbed his sleepy eyes, subconsciously opened the system, and looked at the task that was doomed to fail. Rubbing his eyes hard again, Kinsey thought he must be dazzled. Because at this time, the system task clearly showed that it was completed. Main quest. The road to becoming stronger, continued completed, task requirements. Eradicate the mysterious forces behind Mad Dog task rewards. Intelligence +5, Agility +3, Strength +5, Constitution +3, Ranch points +30,000. To be collected, Kinsey looked at the task panel carefully several times, and his head was full of question marks. What's going on? Is Dupont dead? Who did it? Ding-ling-ling. Just as he was thinking, the gold ring beside the bed rang. Kinsey temporarily put aside his doubts and walked over to answer the phone. Clean, do you know? Dupont was killed last night. He was shot in the head at the dock where he was about to run away. Kinsey was interrupted by David just after answering the phone. Hearing David's excited voice on the other side, he confirmed his guess. After David finished talking, Kinsey asked anxiously, "Then do you know who did it?" "Well, I don't know either. The police are investigating, but the other party is a long-distance sniper, so it's hard to be sure." David touched his head and was a little confused. After hanging up the phone, Kinsey was even more confused. Who could it be? Sniper? Has he had a feud with Dupont again? Could it be? Kinsey thought of this and seemed to have some clues, plus the car sound he heard in the middle of the night last night. Now that it has been confirmed, these are not the most important. What is the most important thing? Kinsey slowly moved his eyes to the reward column. Looking at the long string, the saliva at the corners of his mouth almost flowed down. After clicking to confirm the receipt, the familiar feeling of drowsiness came again, and Kinzu lay on his back and fell asleep. P.S. Because of the plot, the mobile phone is turned on during the meeting in the text. Please don't be surprised. Thanks to Fengxi for the reward, the first update today. Chapter 129 Mission completed. Eva got up early as usual today and had breakfast, but after she and Dale had finished eating, Kinzu hadn't come down yet. Looking at Dale, her sister looked much better today than yesterday, and her dress was no longer neutral, but she was wearing a low-neck dress today. It wasn't until Dale looked at her with a puzzled look that Eva reacted. Her pretty face flushed slightly, and after scolding herself in her heart for being shameless, she said, "Sister, why hasn't the boss gotten up yet? It's almost 10 o'clock, and he usually gets up early." "Well, I don't know, I'll go up and take a look, don't let anything happen." Dale said a few words softly, and then got up and walked upstairs. When she got upstairs, Dale came to the closed door and knocked gently with her hand. Dong 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 dong. After knocking several times, there was no movement inside the door. Dale was a little anxious now, and knocked hard on the door a few more times, but there was still silence inside. Seeing that something was wrong, Dale didn't care about anything else, stepped back a few steps, raised her leg and kicked it. Bang! Kinzu was dreaming, but was suddenly awakened by the loud noise. With his eyes still a little darty, he looked at the person who suddenly ran to the door, wearing a low-neck dress, revealing Dale, and the deformed bedroom door, and was a little confused. "Dale, what's wrong with you? What's wrong?" Kinzu almost asked what was in his mind when he opened his mouth subconsciously. But after a short buffer, he had sobered up a little, and quickly stopped talking and asked. Seeing that Kinzu was fine, Dale rolled her eyes helplessly. "Boss, I knocked on the door several times, but no one responded. I thought something happened to you. I slept a little late yesterday and overslept." Kinzu smiled awkwardly, just stood up and prepared to get up, but sat back down immediately. Covering the quill tightly, Kinzu's old face was a little embarrassed. Looking at Dale with a smile on his face, he said embarrassedly, "Well, Dale, can you go out first?" Wiping his wet hair, Kinzu went out, put on his clothes, changed into riding boots, and then opened the deformed bedroom door and walked out. As soon as he went out, he saw Dale still at the stairs. He walked over and asked in confusion, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" "Boss, you don't have to worry about that matter, the pond is dead." After hesitating for a moment, Dale decided to tell Kinzu the truth, so that if there is anything in the future, he can prepare early. Kinzu was stunned. He didn't expect Dale to say it so straightforwardly. This matter was equivalent to a handle. If he handed her over to the police, she would definitely not be able to get away with it. However, Kinzu was not so ungrateful. He pretended to be surprised and excited and said, "You mean that the pond is dead? Really?" Dale glanced at Kinzu indifferently and said, "Well, I did it myself yesterday, but no one should be able to find out." She stared at Kinzu quietly for a long time, and then asked in confusion, "Clean, why do you feel that your strength has become much stronger?" Kinzu, who was a little scared by Dale's stare, remembered that he had not checked his attribute when he heard this. But now in front of Dale, he had to change the subject and said, "Really? Why didn't I feel it? Let's go down first, I'm almost starving to death." She looked at Kinzu in confusion. Since he didn't want to say it, Dale didn't ask any more questions, and turned around and walked downstairs. Seeing that Dale did not ask any further questions, Kinzu breathed a sigh of relief. He really did not know how to answer this question. Eva, who was re-eating her breakfast downstairs, turned her head to look at Dale, who had just come down after such a long time, and asked in confusion, "Sister, where is the boss? What happened just now? Why was there such a loud noise?" Dale, who was sitting aside, said without turning her head, "The boss was sleeping too deeply in there. I kicked the bedroom door open, and he is now in the back." As he was talking, Kinzu also came down from upstairs. "It's okay, I made you worry, I just slept too late yesterday and slept too deeply this morning. Next time you encounter such a thing, just don't worry about me. With Dale here, what danger can I encounter?" At the end, Kinzu even praised Dale a little. There was nothing he could do, because he just took advantage of her. Thanks to Wangwei and 10 years old one for their rewards and support, thank you. Second update today. Chapter 130 Test Report Seeking Recommendation. After saying that, Kinzu didn't look at Eva's weird eyes. After sitting down at the dining table, he sat down, picked up the toasted bread, dipped it in ketchup, and started eating. While eating the toasted bread with a milky aroma, Kinzu opened his attribute panel and looked at it. Host. Kinzu Constitution. 13 plus 5 Strength. 14 plus 3 Agility. 11 plus 5 Intelligence. 13 plus 3 Specialties. None skills. Cooking LV1, English LV1, Free Fighting LV1, Appraisal LV2, Treasure Hunting LV2, Fishing LV1. Growth attributes. 5 stars range points. 30,000. Looking at his physical fitness that was nearly doubled, Kinzu smiled with satisfaction. But in the eyes of Dale next to him, this was just a wretched smile. After finishing breakfast and watching Eva go to the kitchen, Kinzu suddenly thought of something, so he approached Dale with a mysterious look on his face. After sitting down beside her, Kinzu touched his nose at her wary eyes. Well, Dale, I just want to ask what gun you used yesterday. I heard from David that the scene was very bloody. Kinzu knew something was wrong as soon as he said that. He slowly raised his eyes to see Dale's reaction. Sure enough, Dale's eyes, which were already somewhat wary, became even more wary in an instant. Especially the corners of her mouth, which even raised a hint of mocking smile. It seemed to mean, you keep making up stories, and you're exposed. I just want to ask what sniper rifle you used, can you lend it to me? The words had already been spoken, and Kinzu could only bite the bullet and continue, ignoring Dale's mocking eyes, and said embarrassedly. Seeing that Kinzu's face had become so thick now, Dale had no choice. She couldn't really beat him up, could she? She could only glance at him and slowly said, that's the Barrett A107, which I used when I was in the army. After I retired, my superiors specially approved it to retire with me. Barrett. Can you lend it to me? I haven't seen this legendary gun yet. Kinzu was immediately excited when he heard it. As a pseudo-military fan, although he didn't know what kind of gun the M107 was, he just needed to know that it was a Barrett. Glancing at Kinzu's excited eyes, Dale said lightly, it's not impossible to lend it to you, but you can only use it on the ranch. If you take it out, you don't have a special gun license. If you are discovered, you will never get out in your life. Hearing this, Kinzu nodded happily. Barrett, that's a Barrett. Now, except for the special forces in the army, who can easily touch the real thing. Dale got up and walked upstairs, and Kinzu followed excitedly, looking at the swaying buttocks and imagining the touch of touching the Barrett. Arriving at Dale's room, he watched her take out the legendary weapon from the gun cabinet and put on a quick acrobatic show of assembling the gun in front of Kinzu. Kinzu, who was waiting nearby, was stunned. Of course, he wouldn't tell you that his attention had always been focused on someone's chest. As Dale moved quickly, the already low neck dress opened even wider. But this time, Kinzu was more careful. Before Dale looked up, he instantly shifted his gaze to the assembled Barrett and exclaimed sincerely, it's so big. Dale looked at Kinzu in confusion and nodded, well, this gun is much larger than ordinary sniper rifles. It is a heavy anti-material one, specially designed to shoot 12.7mm bullets. He bent down and took out a box of bullets from the gun cabinet and said, clean, use them sparingly. I don't have many bullets here. Ordinary people can't buy this kind of bullets in a gun store. After agreeing, Kinzu indicated that he understood, and carefully took the Barrett in the long bag from Dale's hand and slung it over his shoulder. After saying goodbye to Dale, Kinzu walked out of the door with the gun slung over his shoulder. Although he enjoyed the life of wandering around with a beautiful bodyguard, Kinzu still politely declined Dale's request to follow him. He had just taken advantage of her in the morning. Who knew if this girl would find a remote place to beat him up? Although his physical fitness was much stronger today, Kinzu still had no confidence in escaping when he thought about her terrifying strength. After wandering all the way, Kinzu came to the door of the stable. Xiaobai, who was released by Eva early in the morning, ran over happily with the 2 horses behind him. After leading Xiaobai back to the stable and putting on the saddle, Kinzu rode it straight to the Appalachian Mountains. Although there was a shooting range on the ranch, it was obviously not a good idea to go to the shooting range with a heavy anti-material sniper rifle. Kinzu was indescribably proud of himself riding on the horse with a long gun. It was a pity that he could not shoot on a horse, otherwise the feeling would be better. Just halfway through, he ran into John driving a pickup truck. Seeing Kinzu riding on a horse, John took the initiative to slow down and stopped. Boss, what are you doing? Rolling down the window, John looked at Kinzu's outfit with some confusion. Ha, I got a good gun. I'll go to the foot of the mountain to try it out. Kinzu smiled and patted the package on his back, then looked at the fresh grass behind John's pickup and asked, "What are you doing? How did you harvest the new grass? These are all going to be sent to the dairy farm. Keep them in that pen for a few days before letting them out to graze." Nodding, Kinzu indicated that he understood. "Well, then you go ahead and get busy. I'll go test the gun." "Boss, wait, the test report on the new grass has come out, and the results are simply amazing. When are you going to take a look?" John hurriedly stopped Kinzu, who was about to leave, and asked with some excitement, "It came out so soon?" "Okay, I'll go and take a look later." Kinzu was a little surprised when he heard this. When did the Americans become so efficient? But he still said it indifferently. This kind of thing had been expected by him a long time ago. Seeing Kinzu's indifferent look, John was a little anxious. He deliberately paid several $100s more just to get the results earlier. Originally, he was afraid that Kinzu would not wait for the test report and start sowing new forage. But now that the test report came out, he was more anxious than Kinzu. "Boss, when do we start sowing new forage? The weather is good now. If it gets colder in a while, it may be detrimental to the growth of forage." Kinzu looked at this honest and somewhat cute white old man with amusement, and teased, "Old John, what, you have no doubt about the quality of the forage now, right? Thanks to KNOW 1117 for the reward and support. It is the beginning of a new week. Keep asking for recommendations and rewards." Chapter 131. Fierce Battle in the Sky. John smiled awkwardly, but still nodded affirmatively, saying, "Boss, this kind of grass is really great. We should sow it early so that the grazing area of the cattle can be expanded." Kinzu thought about it and felt that what John said made sense. He gently pulled the reins to make the restless Shabai behave for a while, and looked at him and said, "Then, you guys harvest the grass first, and I'll ask Hunts and others to come and build a sprinkler system." After saying that, seeing John nod, Kinzu smiled and said, "Nothing will happen this time, right?" No, boss, you go and get busy." John smiled and shrank back, started the pickup truck and drove directly to the dairy farm. Looking at the tail lights of the Ford 750 slowly going away, Kinzu sighed in his heart that he was lucky to have such a dedicated supervisor in his ranch. After sighing, Kinzu gently pulled the reins with his hands, gently pinched the horse's belly, and Shabai immediately ran out excitedly. With the sound of clacking from the flying hooves, the pure white Akultik horse moved quickly in the pasture, as if nothing could stop it. Crossing the woods, crossing the stream, and climbing over the mound, although it was a little out of breath, Shabai still neighed excitedly. Its favorite thing was to run freely in the breeze. Soon, Kinzu came to the foot of the Appalachian Mountains again. Without stopping, he rode directly into the mountains, not treating Shabai, the Akultik horse worth millions, as a treasure. Not far away, Kinzu found a very good location, which was a small mound in an open area. The height of the small mound was about 7 or 8 meters. Following the gentle slope, Shabai carried Kinzu and slowly came to the highest point of the mound. Kinzu dismounted and looked at the rather empty view around him, smiling with satisfaction. "This is it." Kinzu found a slightly flatter place and spread the disposable tablecloth he brought on the ground. He took out the Barrett A107 from his backpack and placed it on the tablecloth, and then he lay down on the tablecloth. Putting his eyes close to the scope, Kinzu began to slowly search for prey. Looking through the scope at the mountains and rivers in the distance is really a different experience. But unfortunately, it seems that his recent luck has run out. After searching for most of the day, Kinzu did not find any larger prey except for a few pheasants and hares. Unconvinced, he searched back and forth carefully on one side, turned around and searched this side, but unfortunately he still found nothing. Putting the Barrett aside in frustration, Kinzu was a little depressed. Could it be that he couldn't even try the gun? Strange, there were many small animals here last time, why had they all gone this time? Kinzu muttered in confusion, and climbed back to the site of the Barrett, ready to look again. Cry. Kinzu was startled by the loud cries that suddenly came from his ears, and he quickly looked up and looked around. In the distant forest, several black shadows suddenly rose into the air. Because of the distance, Kinzu could not see clearly, and he could only be sure that they were several large birds. So he put his eyes closer to the sight and looked over there. In the distant sky, there were now 2 groups of 5 huge birds of prey. Kinzu said he did not know what species they were. Three birds of prey with black-brown heads, reddish-brown feather bases, and feather tips gradually turning golden yellow were surrounding two birds of prey with black upper bodies and white lower bodies. They were launching an attack. Cry with a loud eagle cry, a golden trail flashed down from the sky like lightning. It quickly approached the two raptors below. Through the scope, Kinzu clearly saw that the golden figure pecked hard on one of the two raptors with black and white feathers with its sharp eagle beak at the moment of swooping down, tearing off several black feathers. The black and white raptor that was successfully attacked immediately let out a shrill eagle cry, spread its wings, and quickly circled above. Taking advantage of the moment when the golden raptor did not have time to turn around, it also followed suit and beat it. With this confrontation between the two raptors, the battle officially kicked off, and the five huge raptors in the sky suddenly fought in a mess. According to Kinzu's observation, the two black and white raptors were obviously higher in individual combat power than the golden raptor. Unfortunately, it was now a 3-on-2 situation, and the golden raptor had the upper hand, so the black and white raptor was at a disadvantage at the beginning of the battle. Cry, cry. As the cry became more and more shrill, the first round of the battle had been decided temporarily. The three golden raptors once again occupied the high altitude. It was obvious that they were in good condition, and their feathers were still neat. In comparison, the two black and white raptors, which were a little shaky below, were in much worse condition. Their feathers were a little messy, and their flying posture was a little wrong. Cry just when Kinzu thought they would take a break, another loud eagle cry came over. A golden raptor launched a surprise attack again. Obviously, these guys were very smart. They knew how to sneak attack and didn't let the enemy recover. The attacks came in waves. Kinzu couldn't stand it anymore. Damn it, you guys are bullying the weak with your numbers, but you don't even let them rest. No, I have to take care of this. After muttering to himself for a few times, Kinzu aimed the crosshairs of the barret at the five raptors that were fighting fiercely over there. During the few breaths when Kinzu was distracted, the battlefield in the air changed again. A golden raptor attacked and successfully pecked on the wings of the black and white raptor. This raptor, which was already a little shaky, could not support itself and began to slowly fall diagonally towards the ground. Cry seeing its companion falling down, the other raptor let out a shrill cry, and did not dodge, but rushed straight towards the golden raptor in front of it, as if it wanted to die with it. This guy was in trouble. He was just chasing after the victory and was happy, but unexpectedly, this guy hit him when he was about to die. It immediately pecked a large piece of it on its back. After the black and white raptor succeeded in its attack, it directly broke through the blockade of several raptors and did not want to fight anymore. With its wings folded, it swooped straight towards the raptor that was falling to the ground. Thanks to Liming Xiang for his reward and support, and also recommending a friend's book, A Great Survey of the Urban Martial Arts World. He accidentally obtained a martial arts system and reached the peak of his life. He fought in all corners of the world, conquered all states, and sat on the top of the earth, watching the waves and clouds disappear with a smile. Si est escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a mundo fanfic novelas, significat lo descarga and y subieron sin esfuerzos invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo fanfic novelas all encontrás la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos narradores. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas incredibles. Chapter 132 Golden Eagle and Harpy Eagle. Seeing the golden raptor that was successfully attacked, it spread its wings and turned around to dive down to chase the guy who dared to attack it. Kinzu didn't have time to think about it. He took a slight aim and pulled the trigger decisively. Damn it, you still won't give up, right? Such a mighty and handsome raptor can't be killed by you like this. Bang! A dull and heavy gunshot resounded through the sky and the empty forest. In the blue sky, the golden raptor that had just turned around and was about to dive down suddenly stopped. 2 or 3 seconds later, just when Kinzu was about to put down his gun to celebrate his victory, its broad wings suddenly danced a few times quickly, and this time it didn't continue to go down. It turned again and quickly approached its two companions. Kinzu looked at the 3 raptors in the sky and felt a little embarrassed. He saw that guy pause just now, and thought he had hit it. Just when he was about to take another shot to try his hand, he saw the 3 golden birds of prey in the sky, after circling the sky for a few times, slowly flew towards the depths of the mountains. Kinzu smacked his lips and put away his gun with some regret. He took Xiaobai, who was not affected by the gunshot, and rode on it. He quickly rushed to the place where the 2 black and white birds of prey landed. On the way, Kinzu held the reins with one hand and took out his mobile phone from his pocket with the other hand. He was going to check what these guys were. The first thing he checked was the 3 golden birds of prey. After entering the body features, Kinzu looked at the results and sweat broke out on his forehead. This is really a surprise. The 3 birds of prey with golden wings are the golden eagles that often appear in novels. The golden eagle is a dark brown eagle of the family Accipitridae. It has golden spear-shaped neck feathers, dark eyes, yellow irises, grey beak, feathered legs, thick yellow feet, and huge claws. The wingspan is 2.3 meters, nearly 8 feet. It is the national bird of Mexico. In North America, golden eagles are distributed from central Mexico along the Pacific coast, through the Rocky Mountains to the north to Alaska and Newfoundland. Most importantly, golden eagles are protected by federal law in the United States. They are birds protected by the HSD Convention. If Kinzu had really shot him down with just one shot, his own trouble would definitely not be small. Fortunately, thanks to my poor shooting skills, Kinzu sighed and continued to check the information of the next raptor. It was the first time he was so glad that his shooting skills were not accurate. After entering the information of the black and white raptor, Kinzu looked at the information that appeared on the mobile phone screen and was stunned again. Fuck, why did this guy appear here? Kinzu couldn't help but complain in his heart. It turns out that this is the legendary harpy eagle, also known as the harpy eagle, which is one of the largest birds of prey in the world, almost half the height of a human. The average length of a female harpy eagle is 108 centimeters, the wingspan is 200 centimeters, and the weight is 0.59 kilograms. Only the harpy eagle and the Steller sea eagle have similar body shapes. But the wingspan of the harpy eagle is shorter. The male eagle weighs only about 3.854 kilograms. The harpy eagle is called this name because of the 2 towering black feather crowns on its head. The special shape and body color give it a sense of mystery. Kinzu looked at the introduction on Google, and then looked at the front photo of the harpy eagle, and almost laughed. Is this a sense of mystery? Are you kidding me? Looking at the flat front face, Kinzu always looks at this harpy eagle with a strong middle school style. Moreover, in the late 20th century, due to the destruction of the habitat of the harpy eagle by human deforestation and the killing by poachers, the harpy eagle is now very rare and has been closely watched by ecological organizations such as the International Bird Conservation Union. IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, headquartered in Switzerland, listed it as a red endangered species in 2006. The World Conservation Union lists harpy eagles as near threatened, while the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora states that they are close to extinction. The Peregrine Fund states that they are a conservation-dependent species that requires conservation work such as breeding and releasing and protecting habitats. After Kinzu finished reading the introduction, his heart was like 1,000 horses galloping through. I was thinking of taking this guy home as a pet, but how come it is a protected animal, and an endangered one at that? Looking up at the golden eagles, which were only 3 small ones left, Kinzu shouted strongly in his heart, "Why weren't you guys beaten down? Although it's troublesome to kill you, it's still no problem to raise you." While Kinzu was looking up information, Xiaobai carried him through several woods, climbed over several small mounds, and soon came to the place where the 2 harpy eagles landed. This was a relatively large open space, surrounded by maple trees, metasequoia trees and pine trees that required 2 people to hug. The 2 huge harpy eagles were now in the open space on one side. One of them had a wing that was obviously injured, and it couldn't even stand on the ground. It was now lying on its side on the ground. The other harpy eagle that had chased after it could only stand there anxiously. Seeing the man and the horse slowly approaching, the uninjured harpy eagle suddenly let out a loud eagle cry, staring at Kinzu with its 2 sharp eyes, and its wings were waving unconsciously, as if it was ready to take off and pounce at any time. Pulling the reins, Xiaobai slowly stopped, snorted, and looked at the big bird in front of him with some curiosity. I don't know why the owner is looking for it, and it can't fly with the owner. Kinzu carefully looked at the huge harpy eagle in front of him, who was staring at him vigilantly. The feathers on its upper body were grey-black, and the lower body was white. There was black from the chest to the neck. The head was light grey and had 2 crowns. It has a sharp-hooked beak and strong claws that are almost as big as a human palm. It is probably unique among all birds of prey. And the sharp nails are up to 12 centimeters long and look extremely sharp. According to online information, the small claws of the harpy eagle have a grip force of 50 kilograms. It can easily crush the skull of the prey and pierce a thick iron plate. Looking at the harpy eagle that may pounce at any time, Kinzu can't care about so much. No matter whether it can be raised or not, he will catch it first and then talk about other things. Thinking of this, Kinzu no longer neglected it, turned on the system, and threw the capture technique one after another. He didn't even look at the failed prompts, and just kept throwing the capture technique. Looking at the eyes of the harpy eagle in front of him, from the beginning of the fierceness, it slowly became softer now. Kinzu was happy in his heart, and he was about to succeed. Thank you Li Mingxiang for your reward, support and encouragement. Liuun has corrected the problem raised by the great man, and I would like to apologize to the book friends here. Thanks to Black and White Film for the 1,888 book coins reward. Liuun is very grateful. Due to work reasons, the update may be a bit slow, but Liuun will try to update more, and will update a few chapters on weekends. I really appreciate everyone's recommendation votes and rewards. Finally, I recommend my friend Yibian Thong Bailu's fine novel Heavenly Super System Red Envelope Group. Interested book friends can go and have a look. Chapter 133 Kinzu's Own Fault. Sure enough, when Kinzu used the capture technique on the fierce bird of prey in front of him for the 101st time, he finally heard the mechanical prompt of the system. Congratulations to the host for successfully capturing an adult harpy eagle. Seeing the harpy eagle's originally fierce eyes slowly becoming gentle and obedient, Kinzu turned over and got off the horse, and took a few tentative steps forward. The harpy eagle just tilted its head, staring at Kinzu with its soft and slightly intimate eyes, without any big reaction. Kinzu slowly came to the side of the harpy eagle, and gently stroked its smooth and soft feathers with his palm. Gugyu. The harpy eagle shook its pure black wings and made a slight cry from its throat. Although this harpy eagle behaved very well, the injured harpy eagle next to it struggled violently. It had never been in such close contact with humans before. Kinzu then remembered that there was another injured one beside him, so he didn't waste time and strengthened the physical fitness of the two harpy eagles one by one. When they recovered from their confusion, Kinzu threw an identification spell over them. Harpy eagle, quality. Silver level leader skills. Flying LV3, attacking LV2. Growth potential. 5 stars. Looking at the attributes of his new pet, Kinzu nodded with satisfaction. Although it has few skills, it can fly. The other harpy eagle just recovered and wanted to spread its wings and escape from here. This place is a bit too scary for it. Kinzu quickly signaled his new pet to stop it. He couldn't let the ducky dot run away. This harpy eagle is worthy at being a small boss who has been promoted to a silver level leader. It spread its wings and stretched out a wing. With a snap, it hit the guy who wanted to escape on the head. Staggered by a wing, this guy looked at his companion in a daze. What do you mean? Hurry up and run. Seeing the two harpy eagles grumbling non-stop, Kinzu ignored them. If they didn't run, they were good kids. He threw an identification spell at this guy. Harpy eagle, quality. Silver skills. Flight LV2, attack LV2. Growth potential. 4 stars. When Kinzu finished watching, the two guys also finished their grumbling. The harpy eagle that wanted to escape also calmed down. Blinking its confused little eyes, it really didn't understand why its companions surrendered like this. Well, from now on, you'll be called Haha and you'll be called Pape. Kinzu named the two guys calmly. The first silver level leader who surrendered was a male, so he was called Haha. The silver level one behind was a female, so she was called Pape. Kinzu only realized at this time that they were a pair, and they were not very old, just adults. Putting his fingers to his mouth, Kinzu whistled softly. With its wings spread, Haha trotted for 2 steps, kicked its legs hard, and flapped its wings gently on the ground, and it soared into the air like lightning. Pape was a little dazed, and it didn't react until Haha successfully took off. It also trotted a few steps and jumped into the sky following Haha's figure. Kinzu shook his head. It was troublesome not to sign a pet contract. Haha was different. He just whistled and it knew what to do. It was a pity that the pet quota was too tight, otherwise he really wanted to sign for every pet. Reaching out to Xiaobai, Kinzu turned over and rode on it again. He didn't plan to practice shooting anymore. He returned to the ranch with the two happy eagles in the sky. Hey, boss, why are you back so soon? John looked at Kinzu who was riding a horse with some confusion. He had just fed the cows. When did the boss shoot so fast? Pointing to the sky, Kinzu said with a little pride. Look what that is, my harvest today, it's very powerful, isn't it? John had actually noticed the two harpy eagles in the sky a long time ago. He didn't feel strange at all that large birds of prey occasionally appeared over the ranch. After all, the ranch is close to the Appalachian Mountains, and there are all kinds of birds and beasts in the mountains. Moreover, these large birds of prey generally don't attack the cattle and sheep on the ranch. The small animals in the mountains are more than enough to feed them. Hearing what Kinzu said, John smiled and said, "Boss, this is a harpy eagle. Occasionally, there will be birds of prey passing by over the ranch, but they will not attack the animals on the ranch. In addition, they are protected animals." So, John was talking when he saw Kinzu whistling hard. Before he could figure out what was going on, he saw the two birds of prey that had been circling in the air swoop down and pounce directly over here. "Oh, fuck, damn, how did it come down? Boss, get out of the way. Don't get excited, it's okay, look, isn't it fine?" Seeing John rushing over excitedly, Kinzu quickly reached out to stop him, and at the same time stretched out one arm, trying to imitate the TV show to let Ha-Ha fall on his arm. Seeing that the overlord of the sky, the harpy eagle, landed on Kinzu's shoulder like a good baby, before John could express his shock, Kinzu suddenly screamed, "Ah, it hurts. Quick, get off me." While screaming, Kinzu hurriedly drove the confused Ha-Ha off his arm. Looking at the two bloody claw marks, Kinzu almost cried out of sadness. He was still muttering to himself, "What's shown on TV is a lie." John was watching from the side with a frown on his face. He now understood that these two mighty harpy eagles were somehow lured back by the boss. But obviously, the boss didn't know how sharp the eagle's claws were. They survived by relying on those claws. Although Ha-Ha had landed very lightly, the animal's instinct made it subconsciously retract its claws when it stopped. Then, Kinzu was in tragedy. "Boss, are you okay?" John held back his laughter and walked forward, looking at Kinzu's twitching face, and asked with concern. "No, it's okay." Kinzu held back the pain and stared at the ignorant Ha-Ha fiercely, gnashing his teeth. "You wait, little guy, I'll deal with you later." Pape, who landed on the grass on the side, shivered when he saw it. Fortunately, he was a little slow, otherwise he would be in trouble. Seeing that Kinzu wanted to continue riding, John quickly stopped him and said, "Boss, don't ride anymore, I'll take you back." He walked forward and helped Kinzu get off the horse. He helped him to the passenger seat of the pickup truck, closed the door, and drove to the villa. The two harpy eagles looked at each other blankly, spread their wings, and flew into the air again, circling over the pickup truck. Xiaobai could only walk slowly behind him in boredom. Thanks to Liming Xiang for his support, and thanks to Xiang Meilapi for his reward. This name is really good. Chapter 134 Preparing for Adoption. Soon the Ford pickup truck arrived in front of the villa, and John got out of the car to help Kinzu open the door. "It's okay, John, I can do it myself." Kinzu waved his hand to stop John's help, covered his right arm that was still bleeding with his left hand, and walked into the villa. "Ah, boss, what's wrong with you? Why is there so much blood?" Eva smiled at John, who pushed the door in, and suddenly saw Kinzu following behind, still covering his bleeding arm, and immediately exclaimed. Kinzu walked into the living room and sat down on the sofa. Looking at the somewhat panicked Eva, he smiled with a smile despite the pain and said, "It's okay, it's a minor injury, go get the medical kit and bandage it for me." Eva agreed in a panic, and turned around and ran upstairs. She remembered that the medical kit seemed to be upstairs. "No need, I took it down." Dale heard the sound upstairs and was already walking downstairs with the medical kit. Looking at the panicked Eva, she raised the medical kit in her hand and said. Coming downstairs, Dale used scissors to cut off the sleeves of the Gucci t-shirt Kinzu was wearing. When he took it down, it was a little stuck to his flesh, and Kinzu grimaced in pain. "Boss, did you provoke an eagle? Was it a large bird of prey?" Dale asked with a murderous tone while disinfecting Kinzu with alcohol and looking at Kinzu's twitching face. Kinzu curled his lips and was embarrassed to answer. When John next to him was about to answer, a few angry dog barks suddenly came from the door. Turning his head, he saw that it was Daha and her, two little huskies, with hair all over their bodies standing upside down, grimacing at the two birds of prey at the door. Angry whimpers came out from time to time in his throat. "Daha! Come back!" He shouted and called back the two little guys who didn't know their own strength. If this happened in the wild, or if they were facing wild harpy eagles, Kinzu estimated that the two little guys would be in danger. It was those two guys who did it, right? Dale asked in a somewhat unfriendly tone, looking at Haha and Pape, who were swaying and walking into the villa with a slender step. It seemed that they were going to kill them directly if they disagreed with each other. Feeling Dale's hostility, it was the turn of the two raptors to get nervous. They stopped moving forward, opened their wings slightly, and made a warning sound in their throats. Dale curled her lips in disdain. If this happened in the wild, she might have some trouble, but if she was here, it would be a piece of cake to deal with you. No, Dale, I did it by accident. Seeing that Dale was about to take action if she disagreed with something, Kinzu couldn't help it and quickly explained the cause of the incident in detail. Looking at Kinzu in silence, Dale had the urge to beat him up. Didn't you see that people put something on their arms when you watch TV? Did you? Kinzu touched his nose with his left hand awkwardly, not knowing what to say. He was so embarrassed today. Seeing that Dale was no longer hostile, Haha and Pape calmed down under Kinzu's comfort. They came to Kinzu and pushed Daha and Xiaohe, who were originally circling around Kinzu to act coquettishly, to one side. Daha bared his teeth and was about to rush up to kill this arrogant guy, but he was too small and was pushed to one side by Haha's wings. Kinzu found it funny and reached out to knock Haha's little head hard. Be honest, I'll beat you up if you cause trouble in the future. He asked Eva to take the two little guys who were not giving up and play aside. Kinzu then felt relieved and let Dale help him bandage. Looking at the white and tender skin that was exposed from time to time when Dale bent over, and the deep ravine that was looming, Kinzu felt that his arm didn't hurt that much. He swallowed his saliva, not knowing whether it was an illusion, but Kinzu seemed to see two bright red spots, and now he was really a little uneasy. Boss, didn't you go to practice shooting? What's wrong with them? Dale didn't pay attention to Kinzu's dirty eyes, looking at the whole box of barrel bullets beside him, not a single one was missing, and asked curiously. Hey, don't mention it, it was strange today. I looked for a long time at the foot of the mountain, except for pheasants and rabbits, there was no larger animal. In the end, I saw a few of them fighting in the sky. Kinzu took the opportunity to retract his gaze after being distracted by Dale. He couldn't watch anymore. Today was embarrassing enough, and he couldn't be despised by foreign women. Fighting? Dale asked curiously. Yeah, 3 golden eagles surrounded these two guys and shot them down. I chased the golden eagles away and then I picked them up. Kinzu said this with a bit of complacency, as if he was not the one who fired the blank shot. At this time, John, who was sitting next to him and drinking a cup of coffee slowly, put down the coffee and interjected. Boss, you didn't hurt the golden eagle, did you? It is also a protected animal. No, of course I know it is a protected animal, how could I hurt them? I fired at one side and scared them away. Kinzu leaned with his eyes open, looking at John's serious nonsense, and acted in his heart. I really didn't hit it, I just scared them away. Relieved, John was still worried that Kinzu had killed the golden eagle. Although it was not a big deal for Kinzu, it would not be fun to be blocked by people from the Animal Protection Association every day. Turning his head to look at the two big guys lying at Kinzu's feet, John scratched his head and said, if you want to keep them, boss, it's better to go to the Revere police station to file a case, so that you can save a lot of trouble. Kinzu nodded. He had also thought about this problem. Although the United States does not care much about keeping some ordinary wild animals, some rare animals still need to be filed at a police station. So he said, then go there if you have time in the afternoon. Dale quickly bandaged Kinzu's wound, patted his arm wrapped in a circle of bandages, and said with a smile, okay, fortunately I didn't tear off a piece of your meat directly. Be careful next time. If you want them to stand on your shoulders, let Eva make you a real leather shoulder guard. Her craftsmanship is still good. Well, I'll go and find out if there is any material to make a leather shoulder guard for you. Eva heard her sister say this and also said beside her, well, thank you for your help. Kinzu nodded to Eva, thanked her, and went back to the bedroom to change clothes. With his arm injured, it was inconvenient to change clothes and take a bath. Someone suggested raising a golden eagle, but Liam thought the innate shape of the harpy eagle was very good. Please recommend and reward support. Chapter 135 Good news. When Kinzu was about to go upstairs, the phone on the coffee table suddenly rang. Without waiting for his order, little Jerry jumped onto the coffee table and handed the phone to Kinzu, which made John beside him stunned. Hi, Keen. I have good news for you. As soon as the call was connected, David's excited voice came out. Oh, what news? Kinzu asked curiously, what kind of news could there be now? Stanley Benson, the uncle of Kevin DuPont, has been dismissed from his public office and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Kinsey was shocked when he heard it, and said, "Really? That's great. How did the police determine DuPont's death?" "Ha, of course it's true. I just came out of the court and the judge just pronounced the verdict." David laughed happily. He probably thought it was a good ending. After a pause, he continued, "Regarding DuPont's death, Director Nelson just told me that they have defined this incident as a gang fight. So, this matter is completely over. He also asked me to say hello to you on his behalf." "That's good, it's good that it's over," Kinsey said with some sighs and hung up the phone. Looking at Dale, who was a little dazed on the other side, he smiled and said, "The matter is all over. DuPont died in a gang fight, and his uncle Stanley has been imprisoned." With a slight sigh of relief, Dale finally let go of her heart. Although she did not hesitate at all when she took action, she was still very nervous when she stood up. After all, killing people was legal before, and this was her first time to kill someone illegally. It would be a lie to say that she didn't feel guilty. Seeing that there was nothing to do here, John stood up and said, "Boss, I'll go over first if it's okay. Don't forget to go to the police station to file a case in the afternoon." Nodding, Kinsey said that he remembered it and watched John go out. At noon, Eva had pasta, fried steak and cod fillet. Kinsey gave little Jerry dried fruits as usual, plus some fruits. Squirrels actually like to eat fruits in addition to pine nuts. Eva stewed some meat bones for the two little huskies. When she put the fragrant beef bones on the little guys' plates, she could clearly see the saliva on the two foodies' mouths. As for the two raptors, Kinsey fed them fresh beef directly from the cold storage. Seeing the two guys eat several kilograms of beef in one meal, Kinsey's heart was throbbing. He gently tapped the big husky who was chewing a big beef bone with his finger, and Kinsey laughed and scolded, "Fortunately, I run a ranch. I lack everything except beef. Otherwise, I really can't feed you foodies." After lunch, Kinsey went upstairs to change into a short-sleeved casual t-shirt, leaving his bandaged arms exposed. "Ha, Pape, let's go." Kinsey greeted the two raptors who were squatting on the sofa and taking a nap, and then walked out the door. "Boss, how could they understand so quickly? Damn it. God. They really understood?" Dale looked at Kinsey and said hello like that. Just when she was about to laugh at him and let him know that not all animals can be as smart as Daha and the others, she saw that Daha, who was still dazed, shook his wings and slapped Pape first. After Pape woke up in confusion, the two guys ran over with their short legs swaying. "Oh my God. Boss, how did you do it? Collie is like this, Husky is like this, Squirrel is like this, and now even the Happy Eagle is like this. It seems that all the animals you raise are smarter than other animals." Dale looked at Kinsey in disbelief, and there were rare little stars in her eyes. At first, she was just surprised to see that the husky, which was known for its stupidity, was so smart. But now seeing that the Happy Eagle, who was just brought back by Kinsey, was also so smart, she was a little uneasy. Waving his hand, Kinsey said mysteriously, "Come here, I'll tell you." Without any doubt, Dale trotted a few steps, approached Kinsey, and looked at him expectantly. Repressing the excitement in his heart, Kinsey blew gently into the little ear beside his mouth, and then whispered, "This is a secret." After saying that, without even looking at Dale's somewhat dazed expression, he called the two raptors and ran out in a flash. "Clean, you stop right there." Touching her earlobe, Dale shouted loudly from behind in a bit of humiliation. She had never been fooled like this before. Okay. I was wrong, but there is really no secret. It's just that I have been particularly close to animals since I was a child." Seeing Dale chasing out with a bad face, Kinsey quickly raised his hands to beg for mercy. Not to mention that he can only move one hand now. Even if he uses both hands, he can't beat this female Tyrannosaurus. HMPH, Dale snorted coldly. Without saying anything, she turned around and twisted her hips, and walked to the garage with a shaky step. Kinsey swallowed his saliva while watching from behind. No, it seems that I have to find a chance to see if Mobika's design drawings are ready. This girl is not coming back. Achoo. At this time, Mobika, who was far away in New York, suddenly sneezed. Annie looked at her best friend with some concern and asked, "What's wrong? Have you caught a cold?" Shaking her head, Mobika smiled and said, "No, I guess Keen is thinking about us." Annie blushed. She thought of the drunken at night, and rolled her eyes at her best friend. "I think you missed him, right?" "Yes, I missed him, don't you?" Mobica agreed without any shyness, and asked back provocatively. I don't miss it, it's enough for me to have you accompany me. Kinzu didn't know at this time that someone was thinking about him in New York. He didn't take the accident after drinking last time too seriously, and he always thought that American girls were so open. Seeing Dale driving the night the 15th out, Kinzu opened the back door and carried Haha and Pape up one by one. He kept muttering, "Fortunately, you two guys know how to be clean. If you were dirty, I really wouldn't let you get in the car." Ignoring Kinzu's nagging. After Kinzu got in the car and sat down, Dale drove directly on the road. Along the way, Kinzu saw Dale's somewhat cold expression, and he didn't feel too embarrassed to continue teasing this girl. He was really afraid of making her angry. If she suddenly came to him, it would not be worth it. Thanks to Lee Arm from Jinyu, Fenxi and book friend 170119448558688 for their rewards and support, and thanks to Bai Wenwenri for the reward. This is my idol. His book is the strongest pitfall system in history. Book friends who like it can go and support it. Chapter 136. Prayer Chapter. There is nothing much to say, mainly because I just received a phone call, and I feel very uncomfortable. I feel my hands and feet are a little weak, and I am in no mood to write. I just received a call from home. Grandpa is in the hospital, and the hospital has issued a critical illness notice. My mind is still a little blank now, although I have repeatedly told myself that it is normal for people to be in poor health when they are old. But I still feel very blocked in my heart. As a child from a single-parent family, I grew up with my grandparents. Now my grandfather is in the hospital, but I am still thousands of miles away. I can't be with the old man, and I feel very unfilial. Leon may be rushing on the way home these 2 days, and the update may not be stable. Please forgive me, book friends. Finally, I hope that Grandpa will get better and get through this. Chapter 137. Successful Adoption. Night the 15th drove at lightning speed and soon arrived at the police station in downtown Revere. The sturdy appearance attracted the attention of the busy people in the police station. Kinzu looked at the police station, which was extremely busy with people coming in and out, and looked at Dale with some uncertainty. He asked, "Are you sure it's here? This is where the procedures for adopting wild animals are handled. It should be here, right?" Uncle John said so. Dale was also a little uncertain. With so many people, would there be time to deal with them? "Forget it, since we are here, let's go in and take a look," Kinzu said, and took out 2 dazed harpy eagles from the back seat. Just as he walked into the police station with Dale, before he could take a closer look at the surroundings, he was recognized by a young police officer next to him. Carlyle looked at the man in front of him who had shaken the entire police community, and asked cautiously, "Hello, Mr. Clean, I'm Officer Carlyle. Why are you here this time?" Just as he was about to reach out to touch his nose, Kinzu realized that he was still holding Haha and Pape in his arms, so he said, "Carlyle, I heard that raising wild animals requires registration. Are you coming here?" "Yes. Yes. Do you want to adopt these 2 eagles?" "No problem, come here, please, I will help you right away." Carlyle breathed a long sigh of relief, as long as he was here to do business. He didn't even ask what kind of eagle he wanted to raise. As long as he didn't come to cause trouble, even if Kinzu said he wanted to raise a bald eagle, he would immediately agree. Following the police officer named Carlyle in front of him, Kinzu and the others came to a large office. At this time, there were several policemen working in the room. When they saw someone coming in, they all nodded. "Mr. Clean, please sit down first. What would you like to drink?" Pointing to the guest sofa, Carlyle asked politely. "Thank you, coffee will be fine." Kinzu was not polite. He smiled and said to Carlyle, then nodded to several white policemen in the office, and then he held 2 overly honest harpy eagles at this time, and sat on the reception sofa with Dale. He gestured to his colleague next to him, and a female police officer came over and served them a cup of coffee. Kinzu was a little surprised. It seemed that this Carlyle had some status in the police station. Thinking of this, Kinzu couldn't help but ask curiously, "Carlyle, where is your director? Why don't I see him?" Carlyle, who was looking for information, twitched his mouth slightly, looked at Kinzu strangely, and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Clean, our director is still in Boston for a meeting and hasn't come back." Hearing this, Kinzu smiled knowingly and didn't say anything. No wonder these guys were so enthusiastic about him. He was just wondering, are American police so easy to talk to? Carlyle first made a phone call, and then took a form for Kinsey to fill out, which was nothing but personal information and address. Just as Kinsey finished filling out the form, two white men in uniform came in from outside. Carlyle stood up and shook hands with them, and introduced them to Kinsey. "Mr. Clean, these two are the staff and veterinarians of the pet center. Let them do a full body check on your pets. This will be good for them." Nodding, Kinsey gave a few instructions to Haha, and handed the two harpy eagles to the people at the pet center for inspection. One of the middle-aged white men took the harpy eagles and looked at Kinsey with some surprise. He didn't expect that this harpy eagle, which was known for its ferocity, would be so obedient. However, curiosity was curiosity, and good professionalism still made him check carefully. He stretched out his hands to toss the two harpy eagles back and forth for a while, and after doing a few other inspections, he reluctantly returned the two guys to Kinsey. He nodded to his companions and Carlyle, and signed the document. After watching the middle-aged white man sign, Carlyle put the document away and stood up and walked out. After a while, Carlyle came back with a small sign, and said with a smile, "Mr. Clean, take this. With this, you can raise some rare protected animals, but be careful not to let them hurt people." Kinsey smiled and thanked this small sign made of metal. "Carlyle, thank you so much today. Let me treat you to dinner tonight. Mr. Keen is too polite. It's really unfortunate today. I have already made an appointment with a friend." Carlyle was really shocked when he heard this, and quickly declined. "What an international joke, going out to dinner with you. I guess I will have to take off my clothes before this meal is over." He curled his lips with regret. He really wanted to talk to this Carlyle. He was so young and had such a high status in the police station. It seemed that his family was not ordinary. But since he refused, Kinsey didn't say anything. After all, it was just curiosity. He took Dale out of the police station. It was not until they got in the car that Dale said with some disdain, "A bunch of bullies who only care about the weak and the strong. Why didn't they treat my father so well?" Looking at Dale with amusement, Kinsey comforted her. "Okay, it's all over. Besides, you know their character." When night the 15th drove onto the highway, Kinsey turned his head and looked out the window. The bright sunshine of noon sprinkled on the green grass and sparse trees on both sides of the road. White clouds floated across the blue sky. Kinsey stuck his head out of the window, feeling the cool breeze caressing his face, and felt comfortable in his heart. Dale, parked by the roadside. Turning his head and looking at Dale, who was concentrating on driving, Kinsey whispered. Without asking why, Dale turned on the turn signal and slowly drove night the 15th to the roadside. After the car stopped, Kinsey got out and opened the back door. He took out the confused Haha and chuckled, "Two guys, you can't be lazy like Brother Daha. Come on, go out and fly." Kinsey raised his hand and Haha's powerful wings flapped twice in the air, and then it flew straight into the sky like a sword. Pape looked at Haha in the sky, and without waiting for Kinsey to pick him up, he took the initiative to come to the door of the car, spread his wings and flew directly. The airflow caused by the flapping of the wings blew Kinsey's hair into a mess. Rubbing his messy hair, Kinsey looked at Pape flying into the sky in silence, and complained in his heart, "This is too loving. Are you so anxious?" After getting back in the car, he signaled Dale to continue driving. Looking at the two happy girls moving with the car in the sky, Kinsey suddenly felt like a landlord. "Thank you Sue General for your reward, and congratulations to Sue DA for becoming the first master of this book. Thank you Fenxia AI for your continued support. I really appreciate your 6 recommendation tickets and 100 starting coins every day for a month. It is an honor for Leoon to have a book friend like you. I was going to go home today, but my uncle called and said that my grandfather had been transferred from his hometown to Zhengzhou overnight. He is much better today, so he asked me not to go back yet. It's useless for more people to go, and asked me to wait for news. Thank you for your concern. Thank you." Chapter 138 Cruise Ship. It was only 2 o'clock in the afternoon when Kinsey returned to the ranch. This time, the work was surprisingly smooth. He got out of the car at the gate and watched Dale drive to the garage. Kinsey whistled at the sky. Suddenly, Haha and Pape, who were circling in the sky, suddenly dived down. When they were less than 2 meters away from the ground, they suddenly braked and landed lightly on the grassland in front of the villa. Kinsey was a little amazed. This guy was so agile. I don't know if it was because he had been transformed. Walking into the villa with 2 big birds with short legs, Kinsey thought about it and took out his mobile phone to call Cook. "Clean, everything is settled?" As soon as the call was connected, cooks full of concern came from the other end of the phone, which moved Kinzu. Well, it's all solved. I still have to thank President Cook. You're so polite. Let's get together next time we come to New York. Ha! Governor Theodore also wants to meet the youngest shareholder of Pingo. Kinzu hurriedly agreed to Cook's invitation. After a few more polite words, he hung up the phone. He had just put the gold on the coffee table, and before Kinzu sat down, the phone rang again. He picked up the phone helplessly. It was Douglas's call. Kinzu patted his head and forgot to call him. Hey, Clean, should everything be settled? I heard from my friends that Stanley is in jail. That's a happy thing. Hearing Doug's greeting, Kinzu also smiled and agreed. Yes, I can only feel relieved when the guy is in jail. Otherwise, it's a headache to be troubled by others all the time. Ha! After this, I guess few people will dare to provoke you. Douglas chuckled a few times. This time the incident was quite a big deal. It's possible that the upper circles all knew about the Ponce idiot. By the way, Kinzu, the youngest shareholder of Pingo, also went to the site of major families. Clean, this weekend, that is, at the end of the month, my shipyard will launch a super large luxury cruise ship. How about it? Do you want to come and see it? After chuckling a few times, Douglas politely invited Kinzu, remembering the family's decision to befriend him. Cruise ship? Kinzu's heart was pounding. He had never seen a cruise ship since he was a child. After thinking about it carefully, it seems that there is really time. It just so happened that the next day was October 1st, and Mengyu and the others were coming from China, so they had to go pick them up. Thinking of this, Kinzu coughed twice, calmed down his excitement, and said with a smile, "It's really an honor, I will be there on time." After hanging up the phone, Kinzu stared at the phone for a while, and after making sure there was no call, he put the gold back on the coffee table. Turning his head to look at Haha and Pape who were walking there with their short legs, Kinzu stretched out his hand and waved. "Let's go, I'll take a shower for you." Although he didn't quite understand what Kinzu meant, Haha could still understand the gesture of waving it over. Just when he wanted to give Pape a wing, he flagged it in the air. Confusedly, he looked back. "Hey, where's the bird? Why are you standing there? Come here quickly." Kinzu looked at Haha who was standing there stupidly, called out impatiently, and went upstairs with Pape in his arms. Looking at Pape in Kinzu's arms, Haha was a little dumbfounded. "What's going on? When did you move so fast?" Although he was puzzled, Haha hurried over with his short legs. Seeing the not too steep escalator, Haha jumped up with a little effort. When Haha finally jumped upstairs, Kinzu was already bathing Pape. Looking at Pape struggling in the bathtub, Haha, who had just come up, couldn't help but let out a few strange laughs. Before Haha could feel proud for long, a big and sturdy hand suddenly reached out, picked up its wings and threw it into the bathtub. Quack. This time it was Haha's turn to scream strangely. After all, few birds like to soak in the water like this. Ignoring the pitiful cries of the two happy gulls, Kinzu applied shower gel to them and rubbed them casually, then took them out and blew them dry with a hairdryer. When Kinzu gave them another bath, his clothes were already soaked. He had no choice but to drive the two guys out, washed them casually with one hand, and went back to the bedroom with a bath towel wrapped around him. After changing clothes with difficulty, Kinzu walked downstairs while rubbing his wet short hair with his hands. Seeing little Jerry holding a plate of blueberries and eating them happily, he looked at Eva on the side in surprise and asked, "Where are these blueberries from?" "There is a small area of fruit trees next to the vineyard, but no one has taken care of it for a long time and it has been abandoned." "Boss, don't you know?" Eva picked up a blueberry and threw it into her mouth, looking at Kinzu in surprise. He touched his nose. How could he know? He vaguely remembered that he seemed to have heard John mention it when he first came, but he didn't take it to heart at the time. "Are there many varieties of fruit trees over there? Do we need to replant some? I just came here not long ago, how can I know these things?" Gently holding her chin with her hand, Eva thought for a while, and then said uncertainly, "It seems that there are not many varieties left, only some berries and apples. If you want to eat something else, boss, you can only replant it." Kinzu sighed a little disappointedly, and nodded. It was the only way. Then let John go get some saplings. It would be a waste if such a large ranch is not planted with fruits. And the vineyard should be used. After saying that, Kinzu rubbed his head and suddenly felt that he had a lot more things to do. Seeing that a plate of blueberries was almost eaten up by little Jerry, Kinzu quickly reached out to grab the last few, but little Jerry protested and stuffed them directly into his mouth. Little Jerry hummed a few times in dissatisfaction and expressed his anger. It was not easy to get some snacks, and he could not let the mouse eat them properly. In the evening, Kinzu returned to his room after dinner. As soon as he opened Penguin, he saw dozens of missed videos. He sweated for a while and wondered who was this, so anxious. When he opened it, there were really a lot of them, from classmates, Zumengyo, best friends, sisters, and younger sisters. He called his sister back with some doubts. Just after 2 rings, the video was connected. Before Kinzu had time to speak, his sister's barrage of questions had already hit him. "Xiaozu, are you okay? I saw in the newspaper that you offended a gangster boss. How serious is it? If you can't do it, just come back. It's too chaotic abroad. It's better to be home." Kinzu just understood what was going on after his sister finished speaking. He was about to explain, but was stopped by a voice from the other side. Thanks to Fengxiai and Kayan Timing for their support. Si est escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a Mundo Fanfic Novelas, significat lo descarga and y subir en cines fuerzos invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo Fanfic Novelas all encontrar la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos narradores. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas increíbles. Chapter 139 Zumengyo Shamandanga Xiaozu, what happened? How did you offend the underworld after only being in the United States for a few days? Let's come back, foreign countries are too chaotic. King's mother's eyes were a little red as she spoke. A mother worries about her son when he is thousands of miles away. She has only one male child in her family. What if something happens in the United States where he is unfamiliar with the place? Kinzu was moved and distressed when he saw his mother's red eyes and almost crying on the video. How can it be said that the people who care about you the most in the world are only your parents? Mom, don't worry, everything has been resolved. It was a misunderstanding. I'm doing well here now and have met many big people. Don't worry about my safety. I will return to China when I am free in a while. You don't have to worry. Kinzu was helpless. Fortunately, he changed his clothes and blocked the wound on his arm, otherwise this matter would be really serious. He quickly pretended to be a good baby and looked at his mother's solemn promise. But it's so dangerous over there. I read in the newspapers and online that the gangsters are all armed with guns. How can you fight them? Although seeing her son's confident look, King's mother still asked with some worry. Mom. Who said we were going to fight them? It was just an accident. Besides, I have a gun in my hand, and I have hired a bodyguard. Don't worry about your safety. By the way, where's Dad? It's the National Day holiday. Do you want me to go back and pick you up to play for 2 days? After feeling that his mother's temper was turning towards that of a tyrant, Kinzu quickly changed the subject. He couldn't discuss this anymore, otherwise the final outcome would definitely end with him returning to China. Although he felt very sorry for his mother's concern, Kinzu was still not ready to return to China for development. Not to mention that after returning to China, would the money he got inexplicably disappear inexplicably again? Just saying that if he was asked to return to China now, he really didn't know what to do when he returned. He studied biology, a relatively unpopular major in college. He had no problem working in a research institute or laboratory, but he was completely clueless about starting a company. Would he just eat and wait for death after returning home? Although he liked a comfortable life, eating and waiting for death was not what he wanted. Looking at her son who was trying to avoid the question, she sighed and said nothing. She understood her son's thoughts. A man always wanted to have his own career, and she supported that. But she couldn't help but worry when she thought about how dangerous the United States was. Your dad is out with your brother-in-law. It's all your fault. They're looking for a decoration company in the provincial capital to renovate the place. But we decided to take my younger sister out for a trip during the National Day holiday. We won't go to your place. Let's wait until my younger sister has her winter vacation. Well, okay, then be careful when you go out for a trip. By the way, are my sister and her family going? After glaring at the brat, Mother Keen said unhappily, of course they went with us, otherwise how could we go when we don't know each other? Although Mother Keen shifted her gaze along the topic, her unfriendly tone still made Kinzu a little frightened. After saying a few more words, she hurriedly hung up that video. After hanging up that video, Kinzu felt ashamed. His mother's temper was still so explosive. But it seems that his mother's life concept has changed a lot. If it were in the past, she would never think about traveling or anything like that. But this is also what Kinzu is happy to see, isn't it? He doesn't have many pursuits now. Managing the ranch well and letting his family live a safe and prosperous life is his biggest wish now. Looking at the messages on his phone, Kinzu found Zhu Mengyo's message and touched his nose subconsciously. He also sent a video call back directly. Kinzu, how are you? Are you okay? The video call was quickly connected, and Zhu Mengyo's gentle and caring words were transmitted to Kinzu's ears through the video call. Looking at Zhu Mengyo, who was wearing pink printed pajamas on the other side of the video, holding a notebook on the bed like a docile kitten, and was nervously video chatting with him at the moment, Kinzu smiled. It's okay, don't you think I'm fine now? It's just because the employees had a conflict with them, and as a man I can't back down, don't you think? Zhu Mengyo gave this guy a helpless look, but she was secretly relieved in her heart. When she saw this news in the newspaper just now, she was really shocked. When did the United States become so unsafe? But she was much more rational than Kinzu's parents. She knew that this kind of thing would never happen often, so she didn't circle Kinzu back to develop. By the way, our flight for tomorrow morning will arrive in New York in the morning when we are right there. You have to come to New York to pick us up. We don't know the way. Oh, of course that's no problem. By the way, have you contacted Wang Ming and the others? Kinzu was slightly stunned. Is it the National Day so soon? It has been more than half a month since he came here. Time flies so fast. Maybe she felt a little uncomfortable because she had been doing the same thing for too long. Zhu Mengyo turned over slightly and said, we have contacted them, but we haven't met yet. We agreed to meet at the airport tomorrow. Kinzu didn't hear what Zhu Mengyo said at all. His eyes were fixed on Zhu Mengyo's chest, which was accidentally exposed because of turning over. He almost drooled. He was used to seeing foreign girls these days. Now looking at this female colleague, schoolmate and girlfriend who he has been with for a few months, Kinzu felt that his resistance was almost zero. Hearing no movement from the other side for a long time, Zhu Mengyo, who was fiddling with her flawless jade hands, looked up in confusion. Looking at Kinzu, who looked like a pit, Zhu Mengyo was a little confused, wondering what he was looking at. Following Kinzu's gaze, Zhu Mengyo lowered her head to look at her clothes. Ah, hooligan, you're still looking. This look made Zhu Mengyo a little dumbfounded. She pulled her clothes to cover her body and cursed at Kinzu with a blushing face. Well, I didn't mean to do that. Besides, it's so beautiful, how can I not look at it? Kinzu also felt very wronged. He really didn't mean to look at it, although it was really beautiful. After being said by Kinzu, Zhu Mengyo could no longer remain calm. With a blushing face, she glared at Kinzu who was pretending to be innocent and cursed. After cursing, without waiting for Kinzu to react, she hung up that video with a snap. Thanks to Fengxi, the followers, and generally speaking, for your support. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you. Chapter 140. The idiots who stay in bed. Watching the disconnected video, Kinzu smiled. This girl is so charming even when she is shy. No, I have to work harder this time to get her. Such a beautiful cabbage can't be given to others. He picked up his phone and looked through it, and replied to the greetings from several brothers and classmates. After confirming the itinerary with Wang Ming, Kinzu ended to wash up with peace of mind. After washing up, Kinzu took the two little huskies and little Jerry who was still playing outside back to the bedroom. The two guys still refused to leave, and they kept roaring at the two harpy eagles who closed their eyes and rested under the porch outside the villa. The crisp little sound did not attract the attention of the big birds at all. There was no way, who let them stand high. Kinzu was afraid of keeping the two big birds in the room, so he placed them under the porch and found a sofa for them to use as a nest. You said these two guys are really something, didn't they just flap your wings? Why do you hold such a grudge? While walking, Kinzu also educated the little guy who was struggling in his arms. Woo! The answer was the pitiful whimper of Daha. The grievance was really sad and tearful. Shaking his head, Kinzu said that he didn't understand the love, hate and hatred in the animal world. He directly carried the two guys back to the bedroom. Fortunately, the two guys are still small now. If I wasn't afraid of hurting them, Kinzu could carry two in one hand. After returning to the bedroom and settling the two guys, Kinzu finally reacted. It seems that his arm doesn't hurt much. He touched the wound lightly with his hand. It still hurts. But compared with the beginning, it's like heaven and earth. At the beginning, it was really almost painful to this little Tycoon who had never been injured. If it weren't for the consideration that it was in front of foreigners, especially in front of foreign girls, we can't lose the toughness of our Chinese men. Qinzu really had the urge to scream at the time. From childhood to adulthood, his parents had never beaten him, so he had never felt such pain. Well, except for the time when he forcefully kissed a little girl in his class in elementary school and was reported to his home by the teacher. After returning home, Qin's father politely invited him to have a meal of bamboo shoots and fried meat. But even at the time, it didn't hurt so much. Touching his chin, Qinzu thought thoughtfully. It seems that it is not just strength and physique that have been strengthened by the system. Even the recovery ability has become much stronger. He looked down at the little Qinzu under him, but he didn't know if this guy had become stronger. It seems that he should find an opportunity to verify it when he has time. By the way, foreign girls are all very strong in physique. Last time, Qinzu was able to deal with Mobika and Donid while he was drunk. After thinking about it for a while, he finally aroused his own desire. Qinzu quickly shook his head, threw those messy thoughts aside, and went to bed. The next day, Qinzu got up early. He had already washed up at 6 in the morning. He walked to the window and opened the curtains, letting the morning sun, which was still a little bright red, shine into the bedroom. Qinzu stretched lazily, yawned, and was about to go out. When he turned his head, he saw two little huskies sleeping in a strange posture in the doghouse. Qinzu was a little entangled. Isn't it said that animals are most vigilant when they're sleeping? They turned a deaf ear to such a big noise when he got up. Did he raise a fake animal? After silently complaining in his heart, Qinzu went to find a rope and started swinging it around the handsome dog faces of the two guys. Seeing the two guys pulling at their faces with their little paws in their sleep, Qinzu almost couldn't help laughing out loud. He quickly took out his gold and took a few photos, and uploaded them to the space. The sound of taking pictures did not wake up the two little guys who were sleeping soundly, but woke up little Jerry on the other side. He opened his sleepy eyes and saw Qinzu in front of him. His thick tail shook subconsciously. Good morning. Reaching out and grabbing Jerry's little paw, Qinzu gently squeezed it in his confused look. As if he understood what Qinzu meant, Jerry squeaked twice. He lowered his head and rubbed the little eyes that were not awake yet in a very humane way. Turning his head to look at Daha and Xiaohe who were still sleeping, Qinzu stopped teasing them. He reached out and rubbed the two guys awake. How could they sleep in such a good weather? They had to go out for exercise. Woo! After a few dissatisfied hums, Daha reluctantly opened his pair of black gemstone-like eyes and looked at his master in confusion, wondering why he called him up. Hurry up and get up, go out and exercise, don't become a little fat man. Qinzu needed the little husky again, staring at the two huskies in front of him with a confused look, and said with a serious expression. After saying that, Qinzu walked directly to the door without caring whether they understood or not. The little squirrel followed him hopping, and it had recovered after a while. When he went downstairs and didn't see Eva, Qinzu went to the refrigerator to get some dried fruits and a few blueberries for Jerry as breakfast. He went to the kitchen himself, and sure enough, Eva had prepared a sandwich for him. He heated a cup of milk and finished his breakfast in a few mouthfuls. When Qinzu finished eating, the two little guys also came down from the stairs reluctantly. Seeing their listless appearance, Qinzu picked up their food bowls and gnawed them hard. This trick is never too hard for little foodies. When they heard the sound, the eyes of the little guy who was dozing off suddenly lit up, and he stopped dozing off. He wagged his tail and ran towards Qinzu happily. He smiled triumphantly. It was easy for him to deal with the two little guys. He prepared some cooked beef and some milk for them. Seeing them eating with their mouths smacking, Qinzu smiled and said, "Eat, eat. Eat more to have the strength to run." Qinzu turned around and took 2 more pieces of raw beef and put them on a plate. This was breakfast for Haha and Pape. No wonder it is said that raising eagles is a game played by rich people. With such a large appetite, ordinary people can't afford to raise them. Carrying the plate out of the villa, Qinzu saw Haha and Pape hovering in the sky and nodded with satisfaction. Sure enough, flying in the sky is reliable. Look how hard-working they are. You got up before dawn, right? Then think about the idiot couple in the room. No wonder they can only be bullied by others, and the kind that have been bullied since childhood. Just thinking about it, I saw that Haha seemed to have something in his claws, and he swooped down in the air and came to Qinzu's head. Bankins hadn't reacted yet, and a black shadow fell from the sky and hit him in front of him, scaring him. Thank you Fenner Langyan for the 500 Kidian coins reward. Thank you. It's a new week. Although I don't have the face to ask for votes, I still hope that everyone will vote for Liuun. Because of the contract with Twangship, Liuun's book does not have any recommended position on Kidian. Usually, only by advertising under other books can everyone know that there is such a book. Now I can have such a good result on Kidian, thanks to the support and encouragement of book friends, thank you. Chapter 141 Bird's Nest. When Kinzu saw the things on the ground clearly, he was very happy. It seemed that the morning sun was brighter. Even the breeze exuded the smell of happiness. It turned out that what Haha threw in front of Kinzu was a colorful and plump pheasant with its neck broken. Looking at Haha flying up into the sky again, Kinzu felt so happy. Not only does it not need to feed this eagle, it even knows to send game to its owner. Carrying that big pheasant into the villa, Kinzu suddenly felt that life was better. In the future, he would not even have to eat game himself. Put the pheasant in the kitchen and wait for Eva to come back to clean it up. Unless he is interested or really wants to eat something, he will try not to do it. In Kinzu's words, brother came to the United States to enjoy life, not to serve you guys. After putting the pheasant away, Kinzu came to the pergola again. He wanted to see how to make a place for the two guys to live. After thinking for a long time, he still had no idea. He had never raised an eagle before. How could he know where an eagle should live? Kinzu took out his mobile phone and called John directly, asking him to come to the villa. After all, he was an old cowboy, maybe he knew. But he didn't think about it. Is there any connection between cowboys and raising eagles? After walking around the corridor for several times, John finally came. As soon as he saw John, Kinzu asked directly, "Hi, John, good morning. I want to build a nest for my baby now. What do you think?" John just received a call from Kinzu after cleaning the cowshed. He thought there was something urgent that called him over so urgently. He heard that it was just to build a pet nest, so he didn't think much about it. He said casually, "Boss, of course there is no problem. It's time to build a nest for them. In this way, there should be ready-made wooden boards in the warehouse, which are enough for them to build a nest." Kinzu didn't like what he heard. "What do you mean it's time to build a nest for them? I just caught these two guys yesterday. And do you need to use wood to build a nest for the eagle?" Kinzu coughed dryly and pointed to the sky. He said awkwardly, "John, maybe I didn't make it clear. I said to build a nest for them. Not for Daha and her." Stunned for a moment, John looked up at the sky, where two harpy eagles, which looked extremely powerful if not seen from the front, were slowly circling. He said in confusion, "Boss, build a nest for them? How? I have never seen where they live." Looking at the dumbfounded expression of the old man, Kinzu was also a little helpless. "Really? John, you don't even know how to make a nest for an eagle?" After calming down a little, John thought for a long time, and then said uncertainly, "It should be similar to a doghouse. Don't make them into a cage, just like a bird's nest on a tree." Kinzu touched his nose. "It seems that this idea is feasible. Think about it, isn't that how those little birds build their nests? The eagle should be similar to it, right? Now that you have decided, let's start." So John took Kinzu to the warehouse to select materials. After finding a few long wooden boards, John took out his toolkit and started working. Kinzu ended to find some unwanted rags and other things to put underneath. Soon, John sawed several wooden boards into small wooden strips of different lengths, and began to hammer and nail iron nails. Kinzu felt a little inferior to him. It is said that American men are good at housework, and it is true. Looking at John's toolkit, there are all kinds of small tools. Under John's skillful hands, a UFO-like thing with a diameter of 1.5 meters was soon produced. Looking at the thing that seemed like an enlarged version of a sphere, it was flattened and cut in the middle. Kinzu was a little worried again. Where should it be placed? It would definitely not fit in the porch, and it would be a little inconvenient to put it in the house. After all, the harpy eagle is different from the husky. Although their names seem to be from the same family, after all, one is the Air Force and the other is the Army. There are still very different living habits. Huskies are originally kept at home, so it's okay to lock them up at home every day. Apart from being a little noisy, they won't get sick from being locked up. But harpy eagles are different. They yearn for the blue sky, and it is their mission to fly freely in the sky. It may be okay to lock them up for a while, but it is definitely not appropriate to lock them up at home every day. And their eating and drinking are okay, but defecating and urinating are definitely not okay. They are not like little huskies. If you give them a basin, they will know where to go. It won't work in the house, and it won't work on the pergola. Should we put them outside? John had packed up all the tools on the side, looking at Kinzu's hesitant expression, as if he knew what he was thinking. He looked at the second floor and said directly, "Boss, I remember you built an open-air pavilion on the second floor, right? Why don't you put their nest on the second floor? This way they can take off and land conveniently." Kinzu's eyes lit up when he heard it. Yes, why did he forget about the second floor? There is an open-air garden there, and it can fit even if you make it twice as big. So the two of them carried the freshly baked bird's nest up to the second floor and came to the open-air balcony. Kinzu looked at it and decided to put the nest in the pavilion. In this way, he would not be afraid of wind and rain. After placing the bird's nest, Kinzu put old clothes on the ground, so that it looked more or less like that. "Boss, I remember the birds seem to like to live in trees, right? And don't parrots have a wooden stick for them to stand on? Should we get one?" Hearing John's words, Kinzu nodded. Indeed, many birds like to stand on branches, even sleeping standing up. After thinking about it, Kinzu turned his head and said to John, "Then let's get two, just nail 2 wooden sticks on the side of the pavilion." So John ran downstairs to find a few strong wooden sticks, took a ladder and nailed a few of them at different heights on one side of the pavilion. Kinzu nodded with satisfaction. As expected, American men are beautiful when they do their work. It looks a lot more beautiful this way. He put his finger to his mouth and blew hard. After a while, Haha and Pate glided down from mid-air. At Kinzu's signal, they flapped their wings a few times and landed steadily on the wooden stick that had just been nailed. After touching Haha's soft feathers, Kinzu realized that this guy seemed to have grown a lot bigger, and his body length was almost 1 meter. The 2 claws looked cold and gleaming, giving people a very dangerous feeling at first glance. Thanks to Fengxiai and Hong Chinmanu for their rewards and support. Chapter 142. I'm going to take a few days off, please understand. Grandpa didn't make it through this ordeal, and quietly left this noisy world this morning. Liu Yun, in addition to grief, also deeply understood what it means to want to take care of your parents but they are no longer around. I hope that book friends who have elderly people at home will go back to visit them often. I have been busy with funeral arrangements these days, and I don't have the time or mood to write. I'm going to take a few days off, please understand. Chapter 143. Pheasant. Kinzu stretched out his hand and pulled Haha's wide wings to the sides. With a whoosh, the huge wings of the harpy eagle spread out with a gust of wind. Looking at the wingspan that was close to 3 meters, Kinzu nodded with satisfaction. It was just as he thought. After being transformed, Haha had indeed grown a lot. You know, the average adult harpy eagle is 1 meter in size. But the wingspan is only between 2 meters and 2 meters and 2. Now Haha's wingspan has skyrocketed to 3 meters. Genetic modification is really a killer. However, looking at the spiritual eyes of Haha and Pate after being transformed, Kinzu couldn't help but sigh, why do the transformed creatures have some spirituality? Otherwise, it would be great to use them on livestock. He didn't even think about it. If they hadn't gained some spirituality after being transformed, would these guys be so smart? Boss, is this really a harpy eagle? How can it be so big? John, who was standing by, looked at the terrifying wingspan of Haha and asked Kinzu in surprise. He gestured with his hands while speaking. Of course, this is a genuine harpy eagle. But maybe these 2 guys are their leaders. Kinzu raised his eyebrows and answered casually while looking at John, who was dancing with joy. It is very likely so. Boss, you are so lucky. After thinking for a while, John nodded and looked up at Kinzu with admiration. Kinzu touched his nose. Why did he feel that the old guy John looked at him with a smile? Just when he was about to change the subject, he heard footsteps behind him. Boss, did you go hunting? Why is there a pheasant in the kitchen? Eva wiped her hands with a towel, walked up from downstairs, looked at Kinzu and the others in the pavilion, and asked. Kinzu ignored John, the old and shrewd guy, and turned around and said with a smile, I didn't go hunting. This is all thanks to my Haha. Then, he pointed at Haha squatting on the pillar of the pavilion and explained the matter to Weaver. You mean, it knows to hunt and give it to you now? Eva pointed at Haha in surprise. She didn't believe that the pet she just adopted would be so sensible. Nodding as a matter of course, Kinzu affirmed. Of course, this is true. Isn't the pheasant in the kitchen now? Okay, boss, your pet is always so surprising. But what are you going to do with this pheasant? Grill it or? Eva shrugged and asked. She felt that she was really a little stupid. Even the husky didn't act stupid in front of him, so what was the big deal about the eagle catching prey? Forget it. You go and clean it first, and I'll do it myself later. Kinzu felt helpless when he heard that Eva was going to grill the pheasant. Eating barbecue every day will make you tired. It would be great if such good ingredients were braised with some chili. With a sigh, he could only cook for lunch. Americans only know how to cook a few dishes. Kinzu, who was used to Chinese food, really couldn't adapt. John, how about it? Let's eat here at noon. Try the food that Haha gave us. Looking at John, Kinzu invited him with a smile. John waved his hand and refused. No. Boss, I still have to prepare for the harvest of hay. I'm really busy these days. He was not being polite, he was really busy. Harvesting hay and reseeding is not an easy task. With a word from the boss Kinzu, they would run around. Okay, then I won't keep you. Tell me when you can harvest so that I can ask someone to install the sprinkler equipment. Since he had something to do, Kinzu didn't try to keep him. After all, he was paid by himself. If he took his own money and didn't work, he would lose a lot. Besides, he was just being polite. A pheasant doesn't have 200 grams of meat. I don't know if it's enough for the 3 foodies at home. Looking at John's back as he said goodbye and left, Eva said, Boss, you go ahead and I'll go clean up the pheasant. Nodding, Kinzu motioned Eva to go ahead and looked at the time. It was just past 8 in the morning, and it was still early for noon. So he strolled downstairs and looked at the 2 idiots who were still napping on the sofa. Kinzu immediately walked over and knocked one of them, oh no, one of the dogs, on the head. After a few groans, the 2 little guys got up reluctantly. Kinzu hummed with satisfaction, picked up little Jerry who was still chewing an apple next to him and put him on his shoulder, and then called the 2 guys out. But Kinzu found that since Eva fed little Jerry fruit, this guy didn't seem to be very interested in nuts now. Could it be that the staple food of North American red squirrels has changed to fruit? Outside the villa, Daha and Xiaohe seemed to be infected by the fresh air, and became energetic, and started playing the tail-biting game on the pasture. Looking at Daha and Xiaohe chasing each other, Kinzu felt that what he did was indeed right. Therefore, the slight reluctance he had for tossing the 2 guys early in the morning suddenly dissipated into thin air. On the way to the stable, Kinzu took a deep breath of the fresh air in the morning pasture, and looked at little Jerry who had been quietly on his shoulder, and couldn't help but reach out and gently stroke it. Feeling Kinzu's sudden attack, little Jerry, who had been quietly, gently touched Kinzu's head with his fiery red tail, which seemed to mean that we should touch each other once, don't go too far. Looking at the little dissatisfaction revealed in Jerry's black and bright eyes, Kinzu laughed dumbly, and regardless of the little guy's dissatisfied eyes, he directly reached out and touched the little guy's snow-white belly. Well, it seems that you're full, your belly is so big. Kinzu nodded and pretended to be serious. Squeak, 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 the little squirrel responded to him with a squeak like a hairy squirrel. The little guy pushed him with his little paws and kept squeaking. Is there anyone like you? You woke me up early in the morning, can't I be quiet? Do squirrels have no rights? However, after Kinzu took out a few blueberries like a magic trick, the squeak became a lot smaller. After Kinzu took out a few more pine nuts, the squeak disappeared completely, and little Jerry became completely quiet. While holding the pine nuts and chewing them, the little guy was still muttering in his heart, forget it, this squirrel has a lot of food, and I won't bother with you for the sake of food. Ignoring the changes in little Jerry's heart, Kinzu looked at the 2 little huskies in front of him who suddenly stopped and lowered their bodies to crawl forward with some doubts. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your support. Liu just returned to SH today and wrote a chapter first. The updates that I wrote, I will make up for them later. Thank you for the support of the helmsman who knows nothing about being strong and holding on, thank you. Thank you 141208520555099 Ziyue Shao, Evil Stucci Fenxia AI, Kai Kai Xingxin for rewarding Liu when there are no updates. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your recommendation votes and support, thank you. At the same time, I'm also asking for votes. The results have dropped a lot after not updating for a few days. Please support me as soon as possible, and the updates will keep up. Chapter 144 The Little One's First Hunt. Kinzu slowed down his pace and approached with some doubt. This was the first time he saw these two guys make such a move. Could it be? Sure enough, when Kinzu came closer, he found that there was a grey hare on the grassland more than 20 meters away from them, looking around. Unfortunately, it was a bit far away, and it was too small to be blocked by the pasture, so it didn't notice them. Staring at the small figures of the two little guys, Kinzu was very surprised. These two guys knew how to hunt so well. No one taught them. Could it be that their bloodline is closer to that of Siberian wolves, so they awakened the wolf's hunting instinct? The more Kinzu thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case, otherwise he couldn't explain the current actions of these two guys. Daha and Xiaohe seemed to be particularly excited, just like children who found new toys. But they still relied on their instincts honestly, lying on the grass and crawling forward little by little. Slowly, as they got closer and closer to the hare, the excitement of the two little guys disappeared, and a rare look of solemnity appeared on their handsome faces. The poor grey hare obviously hadn't noticed the two guys yet. After looking around for a while, it lowered its head and nibbled the delicious grass. For it, eating was the best time of its life. Soon, Daha approached the poor little guy first. When it was still some distance away from the hare, Daha stood up suddenly, exerted force on its hind legs, and rushed out. But to Kinzu's surprise, Daha actually rushed to the other side. Could it be that this guy was dazzled? Before Kinzu could figure out what was going on, Xiaohe behind him also stood up, exerted force on his hind legs, and pounced on the hare. With such a big movement around him, the grey hare certainly couldn't fail to notice it. When Daha attacked, the hare had already turned around and jumped to the back. At this time, Kinzu discovered Daha's purpose. The direction in which this guy ran out was exactly the direction the hare was going to escape. Now it was good, Xiaohe was chasing behind, and Daha was intercepting in front. After a while, the grey hare was pressed down by Daha with a tiger pounce. And Xiaohe also arrived later and pounced directly on it. The two little guys held the poor hare firmly with their four front paws. However, just when Kinzu was waiting for the two little guys to bring him the game, he saw Daha holding the hare and shaking his head, and humming at him. Curiously walking forward, Kinzu discovered the problem. The grey fur of the hare was wet, but there was no trace of scars. It turned out that the two little guys just grew milk teeth, and it was no problem to eat some cooked meat at home. Now facing the hare in front of him, it feels like there is no place to start. Ha ha. Kinzu laughed directly at the sight. The two little guys were shaking their heads and tails anxiously, which was so cute. On that face, full of Qingaiban, there was only grievance and confusion, and there was no sense of killing that he had just felt when hunting. Kinzu didn't care about the unlucky hare that was pinned to the ground by the two little huskies, and he picked up the two guys directly. He left the unlucky little guy alive. In fact, the grey hare was a little too small, and it didn't look like there was much meat. Besides, there was a pheasant at home, and he didn't lack game to eat now. The grey hare that took out the dog's paw was confused for a while, and didn't understand why he was not dead yet. But then he reacted, and didn't care about anything else, and ran towards the depths of the pasture. Da Hectares and Xiao Hectares, who were put down by Kinzu again, looked at the hare reluctantly, and then trotted to catch up with Kinzu's footsteps and ran towards the stable again. Facing the morning sun, Kinzu slowly came to the stable with a rat and two dogs. Kinzu took out the groomed Xiaobai, put a sweat pad and a saddle on it, and rode on it. Fortunately, little Jerry reacted quickly and hugged Kinzu's collar directly. After swinging in the air for a while, he landed steadily on Xiaobai's back. After squeaking a few times to express his dissatisfaction of Kinzu, the little guy squatted in front of Kinzu, hugged the pole, and rode steadily on the saddle. Patting his head, Kinzu also found that he was really not a material for raising small animals. It seems that he is still suitable for raising some large pets. If he always raises small guys, he may be harmed by himself at any time. Daha and Xiaohe can only look at little Jerry with envy. They also know their own limitations. Knowing that there is no place for them on it, they just trotted behind Xiaobai obediently. Kinzu wanted to walk the dog. Well, he thought he was walking the dog. So he didn't ride fast, and the two little guys could barely keep up. Wandering aimlessly along the way, Kinzu looked up at the endless pasture and the rolling mountains at the end of the pasture. The morning sun was not very strong, so the Appalachian Mountains in the distance were still in a hazy state, making it difficult to see what was inside. But Kinzu knew that there must be those large pets that he wanted to raise. Well, it seems that I have to find an opportunity to take a stroll inside. It would be great if I could meet that giant python. I don't know what kind it is. Does it look handsome? Kinzu muttered to himself in a low voice, as if the dangerous Appalachian Mountains were like his backyard. He went when he wanted to go and left when he wanted to leave. He did not consider what the consequences would be if he could not subdue those guys. Facing the gradually changing and somewhat scorching morning sun, Kinzu rode the somewhat listless Shiaba and wandered around the pasture aimlessly. Only after the two little huskies were so tired that they were sticking out their tongues and panting, did Kinzu turn his horse around and walk towards the villa. Soon they arrived at the door of the villa and Kinzu removed the saddle from Shiaba. He sent this guy away, who had been running slowly and listlessly all the way, and let him wander around the ranch by himself. Looking at the two little huskies lying at the door of the villa, refusing to get up, Kinzu quickly walked up and picked them up. These two guys did a good job today and should be praised. Boss, what happened to them? Why are they so tired? Dale, who had just returned from helping the cattle, turned over and got off her chestnut quarter. After removing the saddle, looking at the two little huskies in Kinzu's arms, he asked with some confusion. Thanks to 10-year-old Bug, 3U23, Fenxia AI, Kai Hanwang, and several big guys for their rewards and support. Thank you. Recommend a friend's new book. Treasure Kingdom is also a ranch type. Friends who are short of books can go and have a look. Chapter 145 Delicious Pheasant. Hearing Dale's voice coming from the side, Kinzu subconsciously looked up in the direction of the voice. Today, Dale was still dressed in a tight blue denim outfit, with a slender waist and long legs stretched straight by jeans. A wide-brimmed cowboy hat was worn diagonally on her golden hair. Perhaps because she had just come back from grazing, her forehead was slightly sweaty. Looking at Dale, who was a little confused next to him, smelling her fragrance without a trace of perfume, Kinzu took a deep breath and replied with a smile. I took them to the ranch to exercise today. Didn't the book say that dogs should be trained from a young age? As he said that, Kinzu walked into the villa with two little guys who looked like cartilage worms in his arms. Arriving at the living room, Eva, who had just put the little guy on the sofa, heard the sound and came out of the kitchen, and asked nervously, Boss, what happened to Da Husky and Xiao Husky? Are they sick? This time, before Kinzu could speak, Dale, who was looking at her sister anxiously, explained directly. It's okay, Eva, don't worry, the boss is taking them to exercise. Starting to exercise at such a young age? How many months are they? Eva looked at the little husky lying softly on the sofa, not at all naughty as usual, and she was distressed and almost cried. Unlike her sister's somewhat indifferent reaction, she really treated these little guys as children. Okay. Eva, they are different from other huskies. Don't you know that they hunted by themselves today? Seeing Eva's expression that was even more distressed than his own, Kinzu felt ashamed for a moment, and quickly told her what happened today to divert the attention of the two girls. Really? They can actually hunt? Although Eva has accepted the view that Kinzu's pets are all perverts, she still finds it a little incredible. Two huskies, only a few months old, can actually hunt without anyone teaching them, and they have successfully caught a hapless hare. Although, in the end, they failed to successfully kill the prey due to their own hardware problems, this is enough to prove the ability of the little guys. Looking at Daha and Xiaohe, who were blinking their big eyes and lazily lying on the sofa, Dale rarely praised them. These two dogs are good, they will definitely be good dogs when they grow up. Kinzu knew what Dale meant. She meant that Daha and Xiaohe had the potential to become military dogs. However, Kinzu curled his lips in disdain and shook his head secretly. What kind of military dog can fight with the wolf that lived thousands of years ago? The Siberian white wolf that has not lost its wildness is not something that ordinary military dogs can shake. After leaving the two little guys to the care of Eva, who was very distressed, Kinzu entered the kitchen to prepare lunch. Since coming to the United States, Kinzu has eaten a lot of wild game, and it feels different from the poultry he usually eats. This makes the little otaku who has never eaten wild rabbits before feel that life is particularly good. However, except for the braised rabbit meat that he made himself that time, he always roasted it, which inevitably made Kinzu, a little otaku who is used to Chinese food, feel a little unsatisfied. This is just the right time to taste the taste of braised pheasant, so he is ready to cook it himself. Well, it seems that I have to let Eva learn to cook Chinese dishes in the future. It's so troublesome to always let me cook. Kinzu started to mutter before he started cooking. He didn't remember that a month ago, he still made instant noodles every day. Oh. I'm so bloated. Kinzu would not admit that he was arrogant. He took the pheasant and peeled it, removed the internal organs, cleaned the blood, chopped it into pieces and set it aside to drain the water for later use. Put the wok on the stand, put olive oil in the wok, and when the oil was heated, Kinzu put the pheasant pieces that had been drained into it. Fry both sides, and when the pheasant pieces were fried golden brown, take them out and pour them into a colander to filter the oil. Pour the excess oil in the wok. Kinzu left some bottom oil in the wok and heated it, then added some sugar and fried it into sugar color. Then put in the fried pheasant pieces, add scallion segments, ginger pieces, and peppercorns to stir fry until fragrant, and then add a small amount of fresh soup or water, cooking wine, refined salt, and MSG. Then turn the natural gas to low heat and start to stew slowly. While the pheasant was stewing in the pot, Kinzu started to busy himself with other things. He stir-fried green peppers from the vegetable garden with green peppers, and made black pepper beet fillet and tomato web soup. Anyway, there is not much else on the ranch now, just a lot of beef. When Kinzu was done with his work, the pheasant in the pot was almost cooked. Kinzu lifted the lid of the pot and took a look, and then used chopsticks to stir it. Well, the meat is already cooked and the soup is thick. It looks great. Finally, Kinzu added a small amount of red pepper slices that had been prepared long ago, and stir-fried fresh mushrooms with color. Add pepper, sesame oil, and MSG and stir. When Kinzu walked into the restaurant with several plates of delicious food, it was obvious that Dale and Eva's throats moved involuntarily. Even Daha and Xiaohe, who were lazily lying in Eva's arms, suddenly became energetic, and their little noses kept moving, sniffing everywhere. "It smells so good, boss. What you do is different from what I do," Eva praised sincerely. Although she felt that she did a good job, compared with Kinzu, it was like she knew nothing. But she really can't cook Chinese food. Although it tastes good, it's a pity that it's too troublesome to cook. Come and eat, and try the wild game that our Ha gave us today." Kinzu brought the last tomato web soup, washed his hands, and called Eva and Dale to come and eat. Eva and Dale were not polite. After putting Daha and Xiaohe aside, they sat down directly at the dining table. This made the two little huskies very anxious. They stopped being lazy and stood up quickly, wagging their tails, and started to circle around the dining table. At this moment, the little guys were heartbroken. They had been running for a whole morning. Could it be that they were not even allowed to eat a meal now? In the end, Eva couldn't stand it anymore, so she took the plate and got them a few pieces of pheasant and some beef. She just watched the meat voraciously. "We haven't even started eating yet, but they've already started. Come, try it and see how it tastes." Kinzu looked at the two little guys wolfing down the food and said to the two girls next to him with a smile, "Si est escuchando esta novela en un canal distinto a mundo fanfic novelas, significat lo descarga and y subir en cines fuerzos invitamos cordialmente a visitar nuestro canal. Mundo fanfic novelas all encontras la versión original de esta historia y podrás explorar muchas otras novelas de diversos narradores. Te esperamos para sumergirte en un mundo de novelas increíbles." Chapter 146 Return to New York. Wrapped in the bath towel, Kinzu came to the luxurious mahogany wardrobe in the bedroom and picked out a more formal black Gucci dress to put on. He took out the pair of black leather shoes that Eva had polished to a shine from the shoe cabinet and put them on his feet. After putting on, Kinzu entered the dressing mirror and looked at himself. "Well, I look no worse than those pretty boys when I dress up." Looking at himself in the mirror wearing a black dress and looking like a successful person, Kinzu sighed narcissistically. After tidying up his messy hair, Kinzu went downstairs without caring about the little Jerry on the bed. Anyway, the bed was not high, so he was not worried about this guy falling. When he got downstairs, Eva was mopping the floor in the living room. The two little huskies, who were full, curled up on the sofa and snored comfortably. Looking at the two little guys sleeping soundly, Kinzu shook his head helplessly. There was really no hope. Turning his head to look at Eva, who was bending over to mop the floor, Kinzu smiled and said, "Eva, I have to go to New York today and will be back tomorrow. Please help me take care of these little guys and clean up the guest room. My friends and classmates will come to stay tomorrow." Eva stopped what she was doing, straightened up and smoothed a few strands of blonde hair on her forehead. Looking at Kinzu's straight black dress, she first sighed that her boss looked really impatient, and then agreed. "Okay, boss, don't worry, I will take good care of them. By the way, where is little Jerry?" "Oh, that guy is on the bed in my room. You can go and check it later. I'm leaving first." Kinzu raised his hand to check the time. He was afraid that Dale would be waiting outside anxiously, so he hurriedly explained and walked out of the villa. Helplessly giving Kinzu a blank look at his back, Eva put down the mop and hurriedly ran to Kinzu's bedroom upstairs. She doesn't have as big a heart as Kinzu. She really likes the little ones in the family. When she came to the outside of the villa, Dale had already parked the night the 15th at the gate. Seeing Kinzu coming out, Dale got out of the car to help Kinzu open the door and asked, "Boss, you have to pick up friends tomorrow. Can our car pick them? Do you want to drive another pickup truck?" "No, it's okay, and I don't plan to let them take the car back tomorrow." "Not taking the car? Are you going to take a plane? But don't you still have to drive back after the plane arrives in Boston?" Dale looked at Kinzu in confusion. "If you don't drive the ready-made car, do you still want to take a plane?" "Hilly. No, you'll know tomorrow. Let's go, let's leave quickly. I also want to have dinner in New York." Looking at Dale's puzzled look, Kinzu laughed twice, without explaining anything, but urged her to drive quickly. Since Kinzu didn't want to say anything, Dale didn't ask anymore. Her desire for knowledge was not particularly strong. So Dale quickly started the night the 15th and drove towards the ranch gate. Although the midday sun was a bit scorching, the interstate highway, which was already sparsely populated, was now completely empty. In the green pasture in the distance, groups of black Angus cattle and the cute divine beasts were leisurely nibbling on fresh grass. After speeding all the way, Kinzu and his partner finally arrived in New York just before lunchtime. After randomly finding a 5-star hotel, Dale drove the car to the parking lot, and the two of them went to the hotel front desk together. Amid a sweet welcome from the blonde receptionist, Kinzu directly said, "Give me 2 sweets." This time Kinzu learned his lesson, and he didn't have any bad intentions, so he didn't consider the presidential suite strongly recommended by the blonde receptionist. Led by the waiter, Kinzu and his partner took the elevator to the 18th floor. When they arrived at the door of 2 adjacent suites, Kinzu said, "Dale, take a rest first. You've been driving for the whole afternoon. Are you tired?" "Yeah, it's okay. The boss called me when he went out." Dale was not polite. She didn't sleep well yesterday. After saying something to Kinzu, she turned and went into the room on the side. Seeing Dale enter the room, Kinzu took out his wallet and gave the waiter a $20 tip, and sent her away. After entering the room, Kinzu put away some of his belongings, then looked at the time, picked up his phone, and prepared to report to Doug. "Hi, Clean, are you here? That's great. The cruise ship will officially set sail at 9 o'clock in the evening. We will meet at the dock. Don't be late." As soon as the call was connected, Doug's somewhat surprised voice came over. "Well, I just arrived in New York. What time do we meet in the evening?" Kinzu rubbed his nose. He was not used to Doug's enthusiasm. "Let's meet at 8:30, and then we'll get on the ship together. By the way, do you have a female companion? Do you want me to introduce you to one? A big Hollywood star." Doug first answered Kinzu's question, and then changed the subject and asked with a hint of sarcasm. "Well, that's not necessary, I brought a female companion. See you tonight." Although he was very curious about which female star it was, Kinzu still politely declined Doug's kindness. It was not easy to come to New York, so of course he had to talk to Mo Becker. This girl was still staying in New York and refused to go back. "Oh, that's a pity. You know, this woman is not so easy to invite. Don't you really want to consider it?" Doug smacked his lips in disappointment. He was not lying. It took a lot of effort to invite this woman to perform for his cruise ship's maiden voyage. Swallowing hard, Kinzu suppressed his curiosity that Doug had aroused, and said with difficulty, This is really not necessary. I really brought a female companion. Let's do it next time if there is a chance." "Okay, then remember not to be late tonight." Since Kinzu already had a female companion, Doug did not force it. After a few more pleasantries, he hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, Kinzu came to the sofa and lay down, tossing the phone back and forth in his hands, muttering, "Hollywood star, female, beautiful Hollywood star." The more Kinzu thought about it, the more he felt that he had missed a great thing, but things had come to this point, so he should hurry up and seize the present. Thinking of this, Kinzu turned on his phone again, found Mo Becker's number and dialed it. "Hey, Clean, why did you think of calling me?" Mo Becker, who was lying on the bed in the apartment, asked curiously after answering the phone. She now lives in the house rented by Onid outside the school. Onid was busy with something at school today, so she was alone at home playing with her phone. She was startled by Kinzu's sudden call. Chapter 147 Mobika. Listening to the youthful and energetic voice on the other end of the phone, Kinzu chuckled twice and said, "Of course I miss my Mobika. How is it, did you miss me in New York?" "Hilly. Clean, are you in New York?" Turning over in bed, Mobika chuckled a few times at the phone, and then asked, "How do you know?" "You remembered to call me, but you're not here to watch me to submit the design draft." "I can't think of any other reason except that you're in New York." "Aren't you in New York?" Mobika supported her chin with her hand, lying on the bed, teasing Kinzu on the other end of the phone in a playful tone. "Well, okay, I'm in New York." "Where are you?" "I'll come to find you. Let's go to a cocktail party together tonight." Kinzu was slightly embarrassed. It seemed that he was indeed a bit of a jerk. It seemed that he really hadn't called Mobika since that time. It wasn't until now that he came to New York that he remembered the girl. "HMPH, I'm in the apartment that Onid rented. Come over." "But she's not here now." With a snort, Mobika still told Kinzu the address, although she was very angry that he hadn't called her for so long. However, she was still quite interested in attending the upper-class party. Kinzu was a little disappointed to hear that Onid was not there. He was still very interested in that hot Latin American beauty. As for Mobika's temper, he didn't take it to heart at all. Since she was willing to let him go, it meant that everything was fine. He stood up, tidied his clothes, and looked left and right in the hotel's dressing mirror. After seeing that there was nothing wrong, Kinzu opened the door and walked out. Kinzu didn't intend to disturb Dale at first, and wanted her to rest. As a result, just when he opened the door and had no time to close it, the door of the next door also opened with a click. "Boss, are you going out?" Seeing that Kinzu was ready to go out, Dale was ready to close the door and go out with him. "Well, I'll be out for a while. You don't have to go. Just give me the car keys. You can ask the hotel to send food up later. I'll pick you up when you're ready to leave in the evening." After seeing Dale agreed, Kinzu took out the car keys and went downstairs. It was only a few hours before the evening, and time was precious. When he arrived at the parking lot downstairs, Kinzu found that there were several foreigners surrounding his car, pointing and talking about something. He went directly to the front of the car, took out the key and pressed the unlock button. The Knight the 15th, who was lying quietly like an ancient beast, suddenly made a beep unlocking sound. The foreigners who were pointing and talking about Knight the 15th were startled by the sudden unlocking sound. They turned their heads and looked around. After seeing Kinzu open the car door, they looked at each other and shrugged helplessly. After nodding to Kinzu in a friendly manner, they left together. This made Kinzu feel a little embarrassed. The other person just looked at the car and didn't do anything. He seemed a little too childish. But Kinzu was not a person who would easily admit his mistakes. Instead, he muttered, "It is said that we Chinese people like to join in the fun. I don't think these Americans can find anything. It's just a broken car. What's so good about it?" After muttering to himself, Kinzu started his car. Suddenly, the black steel monster slowly moved. Amid the surprised and shocked expressions of many foreigners in the parking lot, it drove out of the parking lot and merged into the endless flow of traffic in New York City. Soon, Kinzu came to the gate of the community that Mobika mentioned. After making a phone call to confirm the specific location, he drove in directly. When he was about to go downstairs, he saw Mobika, who was wearing a pink dress and waiting for him downstairs. Kinzu felt his heart suddenly become hot. When he got closer, Kinzu realized that Mobika was wearing a pink nightgown with a Hello Kitty cartoon pattern on it. She looked very cute. Her big blue eyes seemed to be able to speak and blinked, which made Kinzu feel itchy. Her delicate facial features made her look like an angel. Her golden and smooth hair and fair skin made Kinzu feel that the Hollywood actresses on the big screen were not as charming as the blonde beauty in front of him. "Okay, let's go up first. It's windy outside. Don't catch a cold." Feeling the late summer breeze outside, Mobika turned around and walked back, nodding seriously and saying, "Yeah, it's quite cold. Let's go up." Before he finished speaking, he couldn't help laughing. He felt that Kinzu was so cute now. Looking at Mobika, who was leading the way and laughing non-stop, Kinzu felt that he was really embarrassed this time. "I don't know how long I will be laughed at by this girl." Following Mobika to the second floor, Kinzu walked in directly after watching her open a door in the middle. After entering, Mobika asked Kinzu what he wanted to drink, and then went to make coffee. Kinzu took the opportunity to look at the layout of the room. Thank you Fenxia AI, Benju, generally speaking. How could I not love you, 1mm23, and several big rewards and support. Chapter 148. In the apartment, the house that Onid rented was a 2-bedroom, 1 living room apartment. The area was not very large, only about 60 or 70 square meters. The house was north-facing and south-facing, with excellent light transmittance. There was a small living room at the entrance, and in the corner of the living room was an open kitchen, which was connected to a corridor. It led directly to the balcony. On one side of the corridor were 2 bedrooms side by side, and opposite the bedrooms was a public bathroom. Qinzhu walked to the balcony, and through the balcony, he could see that the greening in the community was very good. On the balcony, there were many small clothes hanging to dry, colorful and dazzling. Qinzhu didn't feel comfortable staying here for a long time, lest people think he had any special hobbies. He turned around and returned to the living room and sat down on the sofa. He looked at this small living room. Although the living room was not very large, it was well organized, and the sofa and coffee table were all light-colored. Even the bedroom doors covered with cartoon pictures. Compared with his villa, which was luxurious but decorated in a calm and atmospheric tone, it seemed particularly warm. At this time, Mobica came over with a cup of coffee. After putting the boiling hot coffee on the transparent glass coffee table, she looked at Qinzhu who was sitting on the sofa. Suddenly she remembered something and asked with concern. Qin, how did you deal with the matter? You can't explain clearly when I call you. What happened? Qinzhu reached out and took a sip of coffee. After hearing Mobica's question, he smiled and said, "It's okay. I just offended a few petty thieves. All the people who should be dealt with have been dealt with." Mobica was relieved to hear Qinzhu say that it was okay. She was also shocked when she read the reports in the newspapers and on the internet a few days ago. She wanted to go back, but Onid said that she would be more of a hindrance if she went back, so she gave up the idea of going back. "Okay, don't worry, it's all over. There happens to be a cocktail party tonight. You can go with me to have fun." Looking at Mobica's worried look, Qinzhu smiled and changed the subject. Sure enough, when she heard about the cocktail party, Mobica's expression was immediately attracted. Looking at Qinzhu sitting on the sofa, he asked with some expectation, "Qin, what kind of cocktail party are you going to attend tonight?" Qinzhu looked up at Mobica and said nothing. After slowly putting the coffee in his hand back on the coffee table, he smiled and patted his thigh. The meaning was self-evident. After rolling his eyes at this guy charmingly, Mobica moved his feet gently, crossed the coffee table and sat directly on Qinzhu's thigh. Then he said with some resentment, "Okay, now you can tell me, right?" Reaching out to wrap his arms around Mobica's slender waist, Qinzhu sniffed deeply with his nose, and said with emotion, "It smells so good." Until Mobica glared at him with some dissatisfaction, he smiled and said, "A cruise ship of Dub Group will go to sea tonight, let's go out to sea together." "Just a cruise ship going to sea?" Mobica blinked his big blue eyes and looked at Qinzhu with a playful look. "Just for a cruise ship going to sea, you would come to New York? Are you kidding?" "Well, it's a luxury cruise ship that's going to sea, and it's a high seas gambling ship. It's going to the high seas at night." "Qin, you don't gamble, do you? Have you forgotten about Sister Eva's father?" Qinzhu was stunned when he heard this, looked up at Mobica's anxious expression, and said curiously, "Who said I want to gamble? I never gamble. Didn't you come all the way from Boston to New York just to gamble on a gambling ship?" Mobica looked at Qinzhu with disbelief. Qinzhu sweated a little, stopped what he was doing, looked at Mobica who was looking at him in disbelief in his arms, and explained, "I really didn't come to New York to gamble. Douglas from Dub's company helped me a lot this time, so he said there was a cocktail party and invited me to come." Qinzhu paused here, looked at Mobica in his arms, and continued, "And I haven't seen you for a long time, so I came here. It's really not for gambling." Hearing Qinzhu's explanation, Mobica finally breathed a sigh of relief, looked at Qinzhu, and said softly, "It's good that it's not gambling. Gambling is harmful to others and oneself. Look at Sister Eva's family. It's because her father gambled that it became like this." Stroking Mobica's pretty face, Qinzhu looked at her watery blue eyes, smiled and said, "So you care about me a lot?" Mobica nodded vigorously, "Of course I care about you, after all, you are my man." Qinzhu was choked by Mobica's straightforward answer. It was really difficult to make them blush with such a question. Chapter 149. Onid's fury. Onid, who had just returned from the laboratory, was carrying some vegetables that she had just bought when she passed by the supermarket, and was preparing to cook in the evening. She had been busy with laboratory work these days and had no time to accompany Mobuka. Thinking of Mobuka's coquettish look, Onid smiled from the bottom of her heart. It really felt warm. She came downstairs, greeted the neighbors with a smile on her face, and ran upstairs with vegetables. Standing at the door, Onid wiped the sweat from her forehead. It was still a little hot this day. Ding dong, Mobuka, I'm back. Onid knocked on the door excitedly. But after waiting for a long time, no one came to open the door. The excited expression on Onid's face gradually faded and became a little serious. Mobuka is not very familiar with this place, so she will definitely not go out. Could it be? Thinking of this, Onid's heart skipped a beat, and she couldn't wait to take out the key and turn the door. Onid stared at the closed bedroom door in disbelief, unable to describe her feelings. The anger and pain in her heart were slowly brewing, waiting for the moment of explosion. Onid took a few quick steps and rushed to the bedroom, still muttering. How could this happen, Mobuka? How could you do this? We clearly agreed on this. When she came to the bedroom door, Onid couldn't suppress her anger and kicked it. Bang! Turning her head in anger, Kinzu was about to curse when he was shocked to find that the figure standing at the door was Onid. However, Onid was at a loss at this time, standing there with a red face, not knowing whether to leave or stay. Clean, you're here. You guys continue. After saying that, without looking at the reactions of the two, she turned around and ran to the bedroom next door without raising her head. With a loud bang, the door slammed again, and Kinzu and the other man woke up from their daze. Pushing Kinzu on her body, Mobuka said weakly. Clean, go find Onid. I need to rest for a while, otherwise I can't accompany you to the cocktail party tonight. Hearing Mobuka's proposal, Kinzu's heart was pounding, but looking at Mobuka in his arms, he felt a little embarrassed. Would this be a bad idea? As if seeing Kinzu's inner worries, Mobuka smiled and said, Why? You feel embarrassed now? Why didn't I notice that you were embarrassed last time? Well, didn't I drink too much last time? Kinzu smiled awkwardly and defended in a low voice. We drank too much, but you didn't seem to drink much. Rolling a look at this guy, Mobuka continued. Okay, go find her quickly. I need to rest for a while, otherwise I really don't have the energy to accompany you to the cocktail party tonight. As she said that, she pushed Kinzu, who was still leaning on her, aside. Then he reached out and pulled the thin pink quilt next to him and covered himself with it. Since Mobuka was so proactive, Kinzu stopped being pretentious. He stood up, picked up his clothes from the ground, put them on casually, and walked out of the bedroom. Looking at Kinzu's back, Mobuka smiled triumphantly. Senior sister shouldn't be able to escape now, right? Coming to the door of the next bedroom, Kinzu hesitated for a while, then pushed the door open and walked in. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Onid, who was sitting on the bed, trembled all over and raised her head subconsciously. Clean. Why are you here? Onid's voice was a little stuttering because of nervousness. I missed you. I came to New York to see you. Kinzu pretended not to understand her question and deliberately diverted the topic. While Onid didn't react, Kinzu took a step to her side. Seeing that Onid was a little uncomfortable, Kinzu asked for no reason. Why did you come back so late today? My tutor is researching a new technology, so he has to work until very late every day. Onid answered softly. Now, she is not as aggressive as a Western girl should be. Instead, she has a strange feeling. He casually found topics to chat with Onid. As time went by, Kinzu felt that Onid's body was completely relaxed little by little. Time passed slowly, and the sky outside had completely darkened. In the room, Kinzu turned on the orange-yellow table lamp. After Mobuka got up, he felt a little sore in his waist and back. He came to the door and secretly looked inside. The situation was still going on. He smiled and turned to the kitchen. Seeing Onid scattered all over the floor, he shook his head helplessly. Kinzu smiled and said, let's go wash together. Onid snorted softly. With the help of Kinzu, the two walked into the bathroom. Looking at Kinzu, who still looked energetic next to him, Onid gritted her teeth with some hatred. This is the second update today. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. It looks like there will be no rewards today. Chapter 150 Dinner. Kinzu looked at Onid, who looked unconvinced, speechlessly, and couldn't help but smile bigly. He really didn't expect this big foreign horse to be so strong in this aspect. Thinking of Onid's gritted teeth and persistence, and her unwillingness to admit defeat, Kinzu couldn't help but curl at the corners of his mouth in triumph. If it had been like this last time, he might have been defeated by her. Unfortunately, Kinzu's body has been strengthened now, and she can't conquer him alone. What? Unconvinced? How about we continue? Seeing Onnet's beautiful eyes still staring at him, Kinzu couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and deliberately threatened. Humph, with those beautiful eyes that were more moist after the lovemaking, she gave this guy a charming look. Onnet opened her mouth, but still didn't dare to continue to be stubborn. After a hum, she walked towards the bathroom. Kinzu laughed proudly a few times behind her. However, seeing Onnet's legs trembling, he took 2 quick steps forward to help her, so that she wouldn't fall accidentally. When the two of them put on their clothes and walked out of the room, another half an hour had passed. Onnet, how are you? Are you okay? Mobika was shocked when she saw Onnet walking out with Kinzu's support. What happened? Seeing the concerned look of her best friend, Onnet's face was slightly embarrassed, and she quickly waved her hand and said, it's okay, I just twisted my foot and it's a little inconvenient to walk. Listening to the conversation between the two, Kinzu's mouth twitched slightly, and he couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. Onnet could still walk by herself just now. However, in the bathroom, Kinzu couldn't help it, and tried a few new tricks with Onnet. Now, Onnet, who was already a little overwhelmed, was completely in tragedy. Thinking of this, Kinzu was really embarrassed, and he was a little too impatient. Don't make Onnet have a phobia. Seeing that Mobika wanted to ask more questions, Kinzu quickly changed the subject and said, let's go, Mobika, go eat quickly, don't be late. Oh, let's go. Mobika nodded and took the two to the small dining room in that corner of the living room. The small dining room is located in the northwest corner of the living room. It is a semi-open space separated by a glass wall. The area is not very large, only 7 or 8 square meters. There is an oval dining table inside. At this moment, there are a lot of food on the table, some of which Onnet brought when she came back, and some that Mobika just made. As the daughter of a former chef at a 3-star Michelin restaurant, she is still good at cooking. Clean, I don't know what you like to eat, and I didn't buy any dishes. Just eat whatever you want. Mobika looked at Kinzu a little embarrassed. She didn't know Kinzu would come today, and she didn't prepare any dishes in the room. Fortunately, Onnet brought some back when she came back. After helping Onnet sit down, Kinzu sat down next to her, then looked at Mobika and said with a smile, as long as it's cooked by you, I'll eat it. What's more, today's dishes are so rich. Come on, sit down and eat together. Mobika sat down next to Kinzu obediently. Although she also thought that today's dishes were very good, Kinzu was a billionaire after all. She was really worried that Kinzu would be dissatisfied if she let a billionaire eat these ordinary dishes. After hearing what Kinzu said, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. She smiled and pointed at several dishes on the table that looked very good. She introduced them. Clean, these 2 dishes are double-color black pepper beef tenderloin and toast vegetable salad. After a pause, she pointed to several dishes on the other side and said, these are cheese chicken rolls, Italian crispy sardines, bacon baked milky mashed potatoes, curry chicken mushroom pasta, and pumpkin cream soup. These are all what I learned from Joseph. Come and try them. As she said that, Mobika looked at Kinzu expectantly, and that expression seemed to say, I'm awesome, come and praise me. Kinzu subconsciously wanted to pick up the dishes with chopsticks after hearing this. However, he scanned the table and didn't find any chopsticks. Then he remembered that he was not at home today. But no one prepared chopsticks for him. Since there were no chopsticks, Kinzu picked up the knife and fork in front of him and directly picked up the Italian crispy sardines. When he was at home before, he didn't eat fish much. It was not for anything else, but simply because he could not spit out the bones. You can imagine how painful it is to eat river fish without spitting out the bones. So even though that fish at home was delicious and he liked to eat it, he rarely ate it after he was hospitalized several times because of fish bones. However, since coming to the United States and eating delicious Atlantic cod at John's house, Kinzu fell in love with eating sea fish. Not to mention how it tastes, it is enough to have no bones. Putting the sardines into his mouth with a fork, Kinzu took a light bite, and his eyes lit up immediately. The sardines were fried golden on the outside, but the fish meat inside was still very tender. When you bite it, it is crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. It tastes really good. Kinzu gave a thumbs up to Mobika, who was looking forward to it, and praised, it's really great, not worse than those Michelin restaurant chefs. Really? Then try the others. I said that my cooking skills are great, but Joseph still forces me to practice every day. Humph, isn't it because he doesn't want my mother to cook? At the end, Mobica was a little excited. Obviously, when she was at home, she was oppressed by Joseph. Kinzu followed his words and tried several other dishes. Then he made comments one by one, praising Mobica so much that her big blue eyes narrowed into a line. After finishing the meal, it was already 7:30. Rubbing his bloated stomach and looking at the almost cleared table, Kinzu suddenly regretted praising Mobica so much. As long as he said it was delicious, this girl would directly make a plate for him. Then he watched Kinzu eat eagerly. Kinzu almost cried at the end. Don't bully others like this. Fortunately, Mobica didn't really intend to starve Kinzu to death. After seeing that Kinzu really couldn't eat anymore, he let him go. On it, there is a cocktail party tonight. A high-seas gambling ship is being launched. Do you want to go and take a look? Looking at Onid, who was still frowning slightly, Kinzu asked with a smile. Do you think I can still go? Onid said unhappily, staring at this guy who was looking for trouble with some contempt. Thank you for your support from 10-years-old Worm, Fensksia AI, and Waning Hishau. I get off work late today, so there is only one update. The second update will be made up tomorrow. Finde est caption much as great as Pelaga has to el final. No se olviden de dull like busgasms contenido exclusivo ixo in medito. Suscribita news to Patreon. Recuerda, cada like, suscription o donaking nos anima a continue. Great as a todos nos vemos en el próximo video.